Chapter 181, Duan Lingtian's Dreams. Duan Lingtian was unaware of the undercurrents that were currently brewing outside. Deep into the night, Duan Lingtian was lying on the lawn in the rear courtyard, hugging Kair on the left and Li Fei on the right. His legs were crossed above him as he looked up into the heavens with a slightly blurred gaze. A full moon shone high in the sky, and a dense array of stars stood out in the night sky. "Scoundrel, why didn't you go out tonight?" Li Fei asked curiously. She remembered that last night and the night of the day before yesterday, Duan Lingtian went out with the two men the Divine Might Marquis sent him. Tonight, however, he departed from his usual habit and actually had time to accompany her and Kair to gaze upon the stars here. She had heard of the matter of the two Su clan direct descendants being killed, which gave rise to much discussion outside, and she subconsciously felt that it was very likely to be linked to this man. "Little girl, you want me to go out so badly?" Duan Lingtian's right hand slightly exerted more force. He pulled Li Fei into his embrace before lightly slapping the little girl's sexy buttocks and simultaneously grabbing it twice. Instantly, Li Fei's sensitive and delicate figure trembled, and her face flushed crimson. It was as if it would drip out blood at any moment. "Young master, you're bullying big sister Fei Fei again." Kair's clear and melodious voice sounded, causing Duan Lingtian to feel refreshed in spirit. He hoped so much that this moment could become eternal. Holding the two girls within his arms until the heavens and earth gets old, and until the sea dries up and the rocks decay. 1. But unfortunately, he was clear that this was only an extravagant hope, and there were still many things that were waiting to be done by him. What he wanted to do now was create a place of his own in this world where the strong were revered. And only when he stands at the peak of this world will he be able to bring along these two girls to travel to every corner of this world and fully see the wonders of the world. Only that was truly living, truly free and unfettered. At that time, there wouldn't be anyone capable of posing a threat to him, and everyone could only look up to him. "Kair, do you think that this is unfair to your big sister Fei Fei?" "Don't worry, I won't favor one of you over the other." As Duan Lingtian spoke, he had an evil smile on his face. He raised his hand and slapped Kair's buttocks before lightly grabbing it. "Young master, you're so bad." Kair threw herself into Duan Lingtian's embrace out of embarrassment, and was shy to raise her head for a long time. Duan Lingtian stopped flirting with the two girls and seriously said, "All right, give me your spatial rings. I'll help you to inscribe an inscription tonight." "Young master, what inscription are you inscribing for us?" Kair's gaze shone, and after she removed her spatial ring, her watery eyes were filled with curiosity. Li Fei looked at Duan Lingtian as well. After being together with this man for so long, she'd long since been accustomed to how miraculous he was, but she was still curious about what inscription he was going to inscribe for them. "Bone corrosion inscription." Duan Lingtian received the spatial rings the two girls passed to him and lightly smiled. Subsequently, he introduced the effects of the bone corrosion inscription to the two girls. For a moment, both the girls were frightened to the point that their faces went pale. Duan Lingtian shook his head with a smile, as he wasn't surprised by the two girls' reactions. Duan Lingtian stood up and returned to his room with the two spatial rings, and after he withdrew the pile of materials from his own spatial ring, he started inscribing. Inscribing two bone corrosion inscriptions in a single night greatly consumed Duan Lingtian's spiritual force. After completing the inscribing process and returning the spatial rings to Kair and Li Fei, Duan Lingtian couldn't hold on any longer and directly fell soundly asleep on Kair's bed. Kair lied beside Duan Lingtian. Her eyes stared at Duan Lingtian's handsome face, and a smile of happiness appeared on her beautiful face. It was precisely because of this man that her life underwent a tremendous change, and her entire life would be lived for this man without regret even until death. At dawn the next day, when Duan Lingtian woke up, he felt dizzy. Only after sizing up the surroundings did he realize that he wasn't in his own room, and he recalled what happened last night. "Right, I fell asleep in Kair's room last night." Duan Lingtian noticed the young girl sitting cross-legged in cultivation at the side after he stood up. Duan Lingtian hugged the young girl from behind, causing the young girl's delicate figure to tremble and was jolted awake from her cultivation. "Young master, you're awake." "Yes." Duan Lingtian nodded as he greedily took a deep breath. The young girl's natural body fragrance was always so pleasant to smell. Duan Lingtian and Kair went out together to have their breakfast after Kair helped him change his clothes, and only after that did he walk out of the house and walk towards Paladin Academy. A regular day passed just like that. At dusk, after walking out of Paladin Academy's gate, it was calm and tranquil like yesterday. Besides Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, he didn't notice any other third parties watching him from the shadows. Duan Lingtian didn't dare be careless, as he was clear in his heart that the more calm it was, the more likely it was that it was a calm before the storm. Suddenly, Zhang Qian appeared and respectfully said to Duan Lingtian, "Young master, the Marquis requests your presence." Duan Lingtian's brows knitted, but he didn't feel it to be unexpected, as presently the Su clan was on guard as if faced with a formidable enemy, and this was something well known to every household within the imperial city, thus the Divine Might Marquis estate would have naturally heard of the news. That Uncle Ni of his would surely put his suspicions on Duan Lingtian because of the fact that Duan Lingtian got the information of the Su clan's various businesses and the person in charge of those businesses from him. "You two didn't sell me out, right?" Duan Lingtian looked at Zhang Qian with a burning gaze and spoke in a manner that if Zhang Qian were to say yes, then he would drive both Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang out. No, Zhang Qian hurriedly shook his head. The matter of the Su clan was not only related to Duan Lingtian, but also to the lives and possessions of himself and his family, so he wouldn't dare to speak carelessly. "That's good." Duan Lingtian nodded in satisfaction. Zhang Qian once again concealed himself in the shadows, and Duan Lingtian instead walked towards the Divine Might Marquis estate. At the Divine Might Marquis estate's main gate, Duan Lingtian noticed that the soldier on guard was a familiar face. It was precisely the young soldier that was slapped on the head by the older soldier the last time he came here. Halt! Right at this moment, another soldier stood out and blocked Duan Lingtian's way. Slap! Under Duan Lingtian's stupefied gaze, the young soldier who was slapped by the older soldier the other time gave this soldier that blocked Duan Lingtian a slap on the head. Under the furious gaze of the soldier that was slapped on the head, the young soldier respectfully looked at Duan Lingtian. "Young Master Lingtian, please enter." Duan Lingtian nodded and glanced deeply at the young soldier. This fellow, and that slap earlier, he couldn't have done it on purpose, right? As expected, the furious expression on that soldier that was slapped vanished instantly. He had a perturbed expression as he looked at the young soldier and asked, "Brother Ji, who is he?" "He's young Master Lingtian, the Marquis's nephew. Kid, look properly next time and don't be rash again." The young soldier acted like an elder as he spoke. As he spoke, he rubbed the back of his head with a lingering fear in his heart. "I've experienced it as well." Divine Might Marquis estate, within the audience hall. When Duan Lingtian walked in, he noticed that Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan was already waiting for him, and couldn't help but ask, "Uncle Ni, is there anything you called me here for?" With a smile. "Little Tian, be honest with your Uncle Ni, did you bring along Zhang Qian and Zhao Gong to kill the Su clan's Su Lai and Su Yong?" At the same time that Ni Yuan asked, his eyes stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian as if wanting so discern something from Duan Lingtian's face. But unfortunately, he didn't discern anything. "Uncle Ni, if you don't have any proof, then don't make irresponsible remarks," Duan Lingtian said in all seriousness. "You, kid, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang won't say a word. It's an order you gave, right? No wonder you said that you wanted absolute control when you asked for them from me. You had already planned everything at that time, right?" Ni Yuan said angrily. Even though Duan Lingtian was unwilling to admit it, Ni Yuan knew that he'd guessed correctly. "Uncle Ni, all this is only your guess." Duan Lingtian's face remained unfazed before saying, "Uncle Ni, if there isn't anything else, then I'll be leaving." "Wait." Ni Yuan stopped Duan Lingtian before shaking his head with a laugh. "I didn't call you over to ask you that. Since Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang won't speak a word, I already guessed that even if you came, you wouldn't be honest. The reason I called you over this time is because I wanted to talk to you about the war at the northwest border." As he finished speaking, Ni Yuan's expression became serious. Northwest border. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but recall that teacher Sima of his Star Mastermind department had once mentioned this to him. "Uncle Ni, why are you speaking to me about this?" "There's naturally a reason why I'm speaking to you about this. This war in the northwest border is hard-pressed, and His Majesty has given me full authority to be responsible for dispatching reinforcements. A portion of these reinforcements will be mobilized from your Paladin Academy. If there's a student that's able to apply what he has learned, especially if the student is from your Star Mastermind Academy, then one person would be equivalent to an army on the battlefield." Ni Yuan glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. "When I discussed with the Vice Dean Zan of your Paladin Academy, he vigorously recommended you to me. Of course, he doesn't know of the relationship between you and me." "He recommended me?" Duan Lingtian was dazed, but he was enlightened. After thinking about it, he figured that it must have been teacher Sima who recommended him to the vice dean. Right, he recommended you. How about it? Are you interested in going to experience it? At the time, these reinforcement troops will be led by your big brother Ni. Ni Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian with an extremely complicated gaze. At the beginning, when that vice dean Zan recommended Duan Lingtian, he was skeptical. But later, when the vice dean Zan mentioned the strategy of crossing the sea while deceiving the heavens, that Duan Lingtian thought of, it caused him to be overwhelmed. Never had he imagined that this nephew of this, whose natural talent in the martial Tao and natural talent in alchemy were heaven-defying, had such a terrifying natural talent in the art of strategy. Of course I'm interested, Duan Lingtian hurriedly nodded. Uncle Ni, when are the reinforcements heading to the northwest border? In a month, if you want to go, then prepare properly during this time, Ni Yuan said. Okay, Duan Lingtian nodded before bidding his farewell and leaving. On the way home, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be slightly excited. The battlefields of this lifetime were completely different from the battlefields of his previous lifetime. He had taken part in some of the battlefields in his previous lifetime, but that was practically only contending with firearms and was far from the hot-bloodedness of the battlefield of this lifetime that used cold arms. 2. Within Duan Lingtian's heart, there had always been a dream. He hoped that one day, he would be able to gallop his horse to kill his enemies on the battlefield like how it was done in the ancient times of his previous world and battle until the last moment, fully venting the hot blood within his entire body. Now he had finally obtained the opportunity. 1 TL note. It's a way people vow a vow of eternal love, and means for a long, long time and no matter what happens. 2 TL note. The word cold arms is something I made up. It actually refers to an aggregate term used in Chinese to refer to the class of weaponry that are physical in nature and do not rely on any form of chemically explosive material. 181 Chapter 182, Don't be envious of me. There was a trace of an excited smile on Duan Lingtian's face even after he got home. K'er blinked her beautiful eyes that were filled with curiosity as she asked, Young master, what are you so happy about? Li Fei looked over as well. She could clearly feel Duan Lingtian's currently elated mood. It's nothing, it's just that next month I plan to head to the battlefield to take a look. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he casually spoke. Unexpectedly, however, K'er's and Li Fei's beautiful faces both went pale when Duan Lingtian finished speaking. Battlefield. As far as they knew, the battlefield was an extremely dangerous place, and once one went there, one might never return. Young master, can you not go? K'er had a delicate and touching expression with eyes that welled up with tears, as he didn't want Duan Lingtian to take a risk. Scoundrel, if you want to go, then I want to go with you. Li Fei had an unyielding expression. She spoke in a manner that showed that if Duan Lingtian didn't bring her along, she wouldn't let Duan Lingtian go. Duan Lingtian felt his head ache. What are you two thinking? I'm just going as reinforcements. Moreover, it isn't the type of reinforcements that enters the battlefield, I'll be the type of mastermind that remains within the camp and provides advice and suggestions to the men on the battlefield, understand? Moreover, this is the rule of Paladin Academy, if one doesn't enter the battlefield, then one isn't allowed to graduate. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, even he himself felt his face get hot. If he were to enter the battlefield, would he obediently remain within the camp? The answer was a definite no. It's Paladin Academy's rule. Li Fei's expression eased up slightly, as she knew that Duan Lingtian chose the Star Mastermind Department in Paladin Academy, and she also knew the difference between the Star Mastermind Department and the Star General Department. Yes, Duan Lingtian brazenly said. Eventually, Duan Lingtian spent quite some time before finally being able to appease the two girls. And if he could choose, he would rather battle a first-level nascent soul martial artist. Of course, he would kill his opponent with the bone corrosion inscription. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian got his mother's spatial ring from her and helped her inscribe a bone corrosion inscription as well. Only after doing so did he settle down and cultivate. His target was to break through to the 7th level of the core formation stage within the month. The next day, Duan Lingtian had only just entered the classroom when he heard the intense discussion of the students within his class. Their discussions were precisely related to the matter of the reinforcements for the northwest border a month from now. Xiao Yu and Xiao Shuan gathered beside Duan Lingtian and Xiao Shuan said, Duan Lingtian, I heard that over 300 students of our Paladin Academy will reinforce the army 1 month from now at the northwest borders battlefield. I've heard of it, Duan Lingtian nodded. Allegedly, among these 300-plus students, 300 are from the Star General Department, and our Star General Department will probably only send not more than 10 people. Xiao Yu's tone contained an obvious disappointment. This isn't unusual. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. The Star Mastermind Department students aren't born for the battlefield, they serve more in the domestic affairs of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, just like those civil service officers of the kingdom's government, and the county governors of the 18 counties. They're basically all from the Star Mastermind Department, and some of the officials under them are from the Star Mastermind Department as well. Xiao Xuan had a bitter smile on his face. I wish for nothing more than to change places with Tianhu right now. Although the grade 1 students of the Star General Department don't have any placing quota to enter the reinforcements, in another 2 years, I would at least have the chance to enter the battlefield. Within the Star Mastermind Department, I might not have the chance to enter the battlefield and take a look even after I graduate. The battlefield is brutal. Moreover, the environment is very bad. It's not comparable to the extravagant life you have at the Xiao clan. If you were to go, you might not be accustomed to it. Duan Lingtian shook his head. He was clear about Xiao Xuan's mentality, and it was nothing more than curiosity. It isn't bad to have an experience, Xiao Xuan said. Xiao Yu nodded in deep agreement. Duan Lingtian noticed their gazes of anticipations and said, with a light smile, if you two really want to go, I can get 2 places for you. You, Xiao Xuan and Xiao Yu both had doubts on their faces as they gazed at Duan Lingtian, and Xiao Xuan said, Duan Lingtian, you have Teacher Sima's vigorous recommendation, and thus you might be able to obtain a place, but you said you can get 2 places for us. That's a bit too much of a boast. Unless you know the general that's leading the army this time, or you know the Divine Might Marquis. What, you two don't believe me? Duan Lingtian started laughing. Xiao Xuan had really hit the spot this time. He not only knew the general that was leading the army this time, but at the same time he also knew of the Divine Might Marquis. To Duan Lingtian, 2 places was only a matter of saying a single sentence. Xiao Yu's gaze focused as he said, in surprise, Duan Lingtian, do you really have a way to get spots for us? You've known me for so long, have I ever lied to you? Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Even this fellow, Xiao Yu, doubted him. The 2 of you prepare properly this month. In a month, depart with me. Although Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan didn't know why Duan Lingtian had such confidence, they realized that Duan Lingtian wasn't joking, and their eyes shone. Right, when we're having lunch, don't mention this matter. I'm worried Tianhu would want to follow me as well. It's fine that you two are following since you're both Star Mastermind students and don't have to personally enter the battlefield, but Tianhu is different, Duan Lingtian said, with a serious expression. If the current Tianhu were to enter the battlefield, he would only have a slim chance of survival, and as a friend, he didn't want Tianhu to take the risk. Don't worry, we know what to do, that kid Tianhu, even if you don't help him get a place, he will still have a chance to enter the battlefield in a year or 2. Xiao Xuan laughed. Before long, Sima Chongfeng arrived. The class for the entire morning passed extremely quickly. When it was nearly noon, Sima Chongfeng called Duan Lingtian over. Duan Lingtian, the Northwest Borders Battlefield Reinforcement Order had been passed down. I've already recommended you to the Vice Dean. The Star Mastermind Department's roster will be released half a month from now. You'll depart a month from now, so you prepare properly. Duan Lingtian lightly nodded with a carefree expression. Looking at Duan Lingtian's composed expression caused Sima Chongfeng to be secretly surprised. This kid is indeed a genius of great potential. He's going to enter the battlefield, yet he's actually so calm. However, if Sima Chongfeng knew that Duan Lingtian had received the news beforehand, it was a mystery as to how his expression would be. At noon, when they were eating at the cafeteria, Tianhu had a complacent and excited expression. I heard that the roster for the Star General Department's reinforcements for this time's Northwest Border Battlefield has been released, and many of the students are grade 2 students of the Star General Department. Looks like I'll have an opportunity next year. As long as you work hard and cultivate, you'll naturally have an opportunity, Duan Lingtian said, with a smile. Hey, Duan Lingtian, you all don't have to be envious of me, really. Although your Star Mastermind Department students have a 90% plus chance that they won't have a chance to enter the battlefield until graduation, there's still a thread of hope. Moreover, it doesn't matter if you're unable to enter the battlefield, as killing isn't suited to you all. Tian Hu seemed as if he was consoling Duan Ling Tian's group of three, but his tone, however, obviously contained a trace of complacency. Yes, you're right, Duan Ling Tian said in all seriousness as he forcefully held back his laughter. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan couldn't hold back and laughed loudly. What are you all laughing about? Tian Hu had a stunned expression. Nothing. Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan shook their heads. No matter how Tian Hu questioned, they wouldn't speak a word. They were confident that Tian Hu would find out about the truth in 1 month. After finishing their meal, Duan Ling Tian once again cultivated atop the large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds for the entire afternoon before leaving Paladin Academy with Xiao Xuan and Xiao Yu. After parting their ways, Duan Ling Tian directly went home. At a far-off corner of the inner city, not far away, a middle-aged man was slowly walking before a remote building, and if one were to look closely, one would notice that his legs were currently shivering. Damn it, I'm not doing this job anymore, although I only have to talk, that fellow behind the counter is too terrifying. He only spoke 2 sentences and I nearly wet my pants from fear. As he muttered, the middle-aged man grit his teeth and eventually walked into the building. Within the spacious lobby, there was only one person standing behind the counter. I've come to confirm the assignment, that Duan Ling Tian. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and didn't dare look at the young man behind the counter. The young man behind the counter frowned when he saw the middle-aged man's terrified appearance, and he indifferently said, "We aren't accepting this assignment." What? Not accepting? The middle-aged man was struck dumb. Never had he imagined there would be such a result, and for a moment he seemed to forget to be afraid. He freaked out and said, "Isn't this the Ghastly Shadow organization? Isn't Ghastly Shadow the most famous assassin organization within the Crimson Sky Kingdom? You can't even take care of a youth." Slap. The young man's frosty gaze was like a saber as it swept past the middle-aged man. He raised his hand and dropped a stack of silver on the counter. "This is the deposit, it is being returned. You all," the middle-aged man seemed to suddenly gain courage out of nowhere and seemed to want to say something. "FK off." The young man's eyes narrowed slightly, and an icy cold killing intent swept out from him. In the instant that the middle-aged man was enveloped in the killing intent, his body trembled and he was terrified to the point that he wet his pants. "I asked you to FK off. Didn't you hear me?" The young man's voice briefly contained a slight impatience. I can't move." The middle-aged man laughed bitterly. You actually dared to dirty my Ghastly Shadow's point of operations." The young man smelled a pungent stench of urine. His face went gloomy before extending his hand to take back all the silver on the counter. "You can consider this silver the cleaning fee. If the person behind you has an objection, you can ask him to personally to come see me. Now, I'll give you the time of 3 breaths to vanish, otherwise, leave your life here." The young man's voice became even colder. The middle-aged man's face went ghastly pale and his legs trembled. His entire body seemed to transform into a gust of wind as he rushed out of the Ghastly Shadow's point of operations in an extremely sorry state. 200,000 silver, 200,000 silver gone just like that. After leaving, the middle-aged man seemed to have finally reacted to the 200,000 that seemed to have been confiscated. A gust of wind blew by, and the middle-aged man felt everywhere below the belt to be chilly, but it was even more icy cold within his heart. 200,000 silver was gone just like that. How would he return and explain it? As he glanced at his damp pants, he really wished to cut of that thing under his belt, but after a moment of thought, he didn't have the courage after all. 182 Chapter 183, Former Number 1 Genius. Within a spacious courtyard house in the Imperial City's inner city. Trash, kneel down. A middle-aged man with a stiff face kicked his leg out like a bolt of lightning, kicking the middle-aged man with drenched pants down to the floor. He knelt there on the ground and shivered with his head lowered. He didn't dare to look at that big and tall figure before him. "Second Master, it's I who didn't handle this matter well. I'll replace the 200,000 silver this trash lost," the middle-aged man with a stiff face respectfully said to the big and tall figure. 200,000 silver is a small matter. The big and tall figure walked out from the shadows, and under the moonlight, a slightly dignified face was briefly revealed. This was another middle-aged man, and a dignified appearance of a person in a high position was emitted from between his brows. That Ghastly Shadow wasn't willing to accept the assignment on that little bastard. The dignified middle-aged man looked at the middle-aged man who knelt on the floor. He couldn't help but frown, as he could vaguely smell the pungent stench of urine. Yes, second master. The middle-aged man who knelt on the floor hurriedly nodded and his body shivered. The dignified middle-aged man glanced at the middle-aged man with the stiff face, and said, with an incomparably calm voice, "Make it clean." Second master, spare me, second master, spare. The face of the middle-aged man who knelt on the ground went ghastly pale, but he didn't even finish speaking before his skull was shattered with a slap of the middle-aged man beside him. Dead. Second master, even Ghastly Shadow isn't willing to accept the assignment on Duan Ling Tian. Does he have? The middle-aged man with the stiff face was slightly hesitant. Humph, I'm extremely clear of his background. Since Ghastly Shadow won't accept it, go find someone else to deal with him. The middle-aged man with a dignified expression raised his hand, and a huge stack of silver dropped onto the ground. This is 30 million silver. You take care of this matter cleanly. I don't wish the others from the clan to find out. 30 million silver. The pupils of the middle-aged man with the stiff face constricted, as he never imagined that the man before him would be willing to pay such a huge amount of wealth for a mere 18-year-old youth. Yes, second master. The middle-aged man with a stiff face put away the silver before picking up the corpse beside him and quickly leaving the courtyard house. In next to no time, only the middle-aged man with the dignified expression remained within the courtyard house, and an icy cold voice echoed out from within his mouth, filling the entire courtyard house. Duan Ling Tian, you killed my son, so I'll make you die a graveless death. Early in the morning, as the first light of the morning sun descended onto the ground, bits of sunlight shone through the window to descend onto the youth who sat cross-legged on his bed. Huff. After a long time, the youth took a deep breath and his gaze focused. With my current progress, I should be able to break through to the 7th level of the core formation stage before departing. After putting on his violet clothes, the youth left home after eating breakfast. As he passed by the side of the martial arts practice ground after entering Paladin Academy, many students could be seen cultivating martial skills and sparring within the martial arts practice grounds. These people are all students from the Star General Department. Duan Ling Tian's gaze slightly focused. It looked like the reinforcement army going out to battle 1 month from now had aroused the spirits of these Star General Department students. Suddenly, 3 young men walked over towards him from afar. A smile appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth, as there was a familiar face amongst the 3 people before his eyes, and it was precisely Duan Rong, the cousin of Duan Ling Xing. Ever since Duan Ling Xing died, Duan Ling Tian hadn't once seen Duan Rong again, but never had he expected that he would encounter him here. Duan Rong lowered his head when he noticed Duan Ling Tian. He had the intention to avoid him. Duan Rong, what are you afraid of? The tall young man beside Duan Long looked at the violet-clothed youth that was afar, and his sword-shaped eyebrows knitted, seeming to be slightly puzzled. Big brother Xu Qing, he's Duan Ling Tian. The other person laughed bitterly. He's Duan Ling Tian. The gaze of the young man called Xu Qing focused and a bright light flashed within, and he raised his hand to place it onto Duan Rong's shoulder. Duan Rong, you're someone who came from my myriad linked county, could it be that you think he can still bully you with me here? Duan Rong shuddered as he returned to his senses. Yeah, how could he have forgotten? The young man beside him was the son of the myriad linked county's county governor, the county governor's estate's young master. Before Duan Ling Tian's appearance, he was even publicly acknowledged as the student with the highest natural talent in the martial Dao within Paladin Academy after Duan Rufeng. Duan Ling Tian stood in the distance, and when he noticed that Duan Rong seemed like a mouse noticing a cat when he saw him, Duan Ling Tian didn't plan on making fun of Duan Rong. But suddenly, he noticed that Duan Rong seemed to have regained his spirits and was even walking over towards Duan Ling Tian with the 2 other young men beside him with a great imposing manner. It caused Duan Ling Tian to be stunned. There isn't something wrong with this Duan Rong's head, right? Could it be that he wants to come get a beating again? You're Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian noticed that the tall young man beside Duan Rong was looking at him with a hostile gaze, and his tone was mixed with a trace of coldness. This tall young man had a handsome appearance and extraordinary disposition. Duan Ling Tian was able to discern that he came from an extraordinary background with just a glance. Yes. Duan Ling Tian's brows raised. Could it be that this person wanted to come forward for Duan Rong? I'm Xu Qing. Xu Qing stared fixedly at Duan Ling Tian, and a trace of hostility abruptly arose within his eyes. Before the violet-clothed youth before him killed Duan Ling Xing and spread his name throughout Paladin Academy, he was the publicly acknowledged #1 genius within Paladin Academy. But since then, this halo had been taken away by the violet-clothed youth before him. This caused him, who was proud and arrogant, to find it slightly difficult to accept. Shu Qing, Duan Lingtian thought inwardly when he heard what the young man said. This name wasn't unfamiliar to him, he still remembered that day when he had just arrived at the Imperial City. He once heard others discuss this person within that restaurant in the outer city. They even said that this person followed after that deadbeat father of his to become the martial Dao genius with the highest natural talent within Paladin Academy in the last 20+ years. Later on, after he entered Paladin Academy, he still often heard others mention this Shu Qing. Shu Qing, a grade 2 student of the Paladin Academy's Star General Department, possessed a cultivation at the 9th level of the core formation stage, and he even possessed a grade 7 spirit weapon. Among the students below the origin core stage within Paladin Academy, no one was a match for him. What, you want to come forward for Duan Rong? Duan Lingtian's gaze focused as he looked at Shu Qing calmly. So what if I am? A cold smile appeared on the corners of Shu Qing's mouth, and a cold light flashed within his eyes. Meanwhile, the face-off Duan Lingtian and Shu Qing had attracted many students. As this was a side of the martial arts practice grounds, the group of students present within the martial arts practice ground had gathered over before long. Duan Lingtian, a robust figure walked out from within the crowd and stood beside Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian looked at Tianhu and was slightly surprised before lightly smiling and saying, Tianhu, you're actually here as well. Duan Lingtian, how'd you get into conflict with this Shu Qing? Tianhu frowned and looked at Shu Qing with a slightly fearful gaze. I didn't have any intention of coming into conflict with him, however, he himself came and blocked my path, he even said he wanted to come forward for Duan Rong. Duan Lingtian shrugged with an innocent expression. You again. Tianhu's gaze went slightly cold as he looked at Duan Rong and said, in a cold voice, Duan Rong, if you're a man, then don't rely on others. What are you staring at? If you have the balls, then come fight me. Duan Rong's face turned deathly pale, but he didn't dare accept the challenge, as he had experienced this Tianhu's strength, and it was far from what he could compare to. Forget it. When a dog bites you, could it be that you want to bite it in return? Duan Lingtian shook his head and looked at Tianhu with a smile. It's almost time, so you should go to class, otherwise, be careful, or that Niu Meng might punish you. As he spoke, Duan Lingtian brought Tianhu and walked off shoulder to shoulder, intentionally walking around Shu Qing's group of 3. Duan Lingtian, you and I are both at the 9th level of the core formation stage, and you and I both have grade 7 spirit weapons, do you dare to battle me? Noticing so many people spectating, Shu Qing's gaze focused. He intended to demonstrate his strength to reclaim the halo of #1 genius within Paladin Academy. One must know one's limitations. Duan Lingtian paid no attention to Shu Qing and indifferently left behind this sentence before continuing forward with Tianhu. Awesome, this Duan Lingtian is really something. This Shu Qing is the former #1 genius of our Paladin Academy, but Duan Lingtian actually paid no attention when faced with his challenge. He even told Shu Qing that he should know his own limitations. The spectating group of students was in a complete uproar. Shu Qing's face was livid, his body was quivering, and his handsome face was currently replaces with a savage expression. Shu Qing was from the Myriad Link County's county governor's estate and was the son of the county governor. Since a young age, he grew up with a golden spoon in his mouth, and when he started cultivating, he even revealed a monstrous natural talent. He was even being called the #1 genius within the last 100 years of the Myriad Link County. After that, he passed the entrance exam that Paladin Academy established in the Myriad Link County and smoothly entered Paladin Academy. In Paladin Academy, he was still outstanding. He was publicly acknowledged as the #1 genius within Paladin Academy. Among the Paladin Academy students, only one person from 20+ years ago was able to surpass him, and that person was Duan Rufeng. Duan Rufeng, the former peerless genius whose name spread throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, wasn't of the same generation as him. Currently, Duan Rufeng had even vanished for many years, and thus he didn't feel anything when his limelight was outshone by Duan Rufeng. But when Duan Lingtian appeared with the identity of the son of Duan Rufeng, revealed that his cultivation was at the 9th level of the core formation stage at the age of 18, and killed Duan Lingxing, who was a 9th level core formation martial artist as well, Duan Lingtian's name was spread throughout Paladin Academy and even the Imperial City. His halo seemed to have been taken away in a single night. Since then, hostility towards Duan Lingtian arose within his heart. Since the heavens brought me into this world, then why did the heavens give life to Duan Lingtian? He originally only had hostility within his heart, but today, when he personally met Duan Lingtian, he noticed that he really desired to defeat Duan Lingtian and prove himself to everyone. He, Xu Qing, was still the #1 genius in Paladin Academy. A legend that was difficult for all the Paladin Academy students to surpass. But now, when he initiated a challenge, that Duan Lingtian actually regarded it was not worthy of consideration, this caused his heart to be completely filled with rage. Duan Lingtian, you pu wai. Xu Qing's face was gloomy, and he sneered as he looked at Duan Lingtian's figure disappearing off into the distance. Duan Lingtian, who was walking shoulder to shoulder with Tian Hu, heard what Xu Qing said, and he stopped his footsteps for a moment before shaking his head with a smile and continuing forward. If you think that roaring like this can suppress the inferiority within your heart, then feel free to roar. It's not that I don't dare to battle you, but I disdain to. You should think it over yourself. Duan Lingtian's voice echoed out from afar and entered Xu Qing's ears. They seemed like pins piercing him. Duan Lingtian, Xu Qing couldn't bear it any longer and completely erupted. 183 Chapter 184, 18-year-old Origin Core Stage. Accompanied by Xu Qing's explosive shout, Origin energy increased explosively on his legs, and his entire body seemed to transform into a cannonball as he charged towards Duan Lingtian. 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. Whoosh! Xu Qing's speed was extremely swift, it was as if he'd transformed into a cheetah and moved swift like the wind. Xu Qing raised his hand. Within it, a completely black 3-foot-long blade appeared out of thin air, and a black sword light tore through the sky as it flew towards Duan Lingtian. Above Xu Qing, another 3 ancient mammoth silhouettes instantly condensed into form. Relying on the amplification of his spirit weapon, Xu Qing's attack was comparable to the strength of 15 ancient mammoths. 9th level of the core formation stage. Grade 7 spirit weapon. As expected, Xu Qing attracted the gazes of all the Paladin Academy students present the moment he attacked, and a trace of excitement and anticipation appeared within their gazes. They were all extremely curious as to whether Xu Qing was capable of defeating Duan Lingtian. The sword within Xu Qing's hand flashed out, and at the instant that he dashed towards Duan Lingtian, a fierce and furious brilliance flickered within his eyes. This Duan Lingtian actually said that he disdained to battle him. If it was an older Origin Core martial artist that said it, he wouldn't feel anything. But the person that said this was only a 9th level core formation martial artist, and moreover, an 18-year-old youth. Most importantly, this youth was the target of comparison within his heart, the target he desired to repress. Whoosh! The whistling sound of a sword that echoed out from behind him caused Duan Lingtian's face to turn grim, and he exerted force with his hand to push Tian Hu away before moving aside himself. Meanwhile, Xu Qing's sword strike whistled and flashed over, exactly flashing past where Duan Lingtian was earlier and practically brushing the clothes on Duan Lingtian's body as it passed. Xu Qing, despicable. Tian Hu was in a slightly sorry state, and he stared angrily at Xu Qing with an extremely unsightly expression. However, Xu Qing paid no attention to Tian Hu and instead looked at the nearby Duan Lingtian as he spoke with a voice as cold as ice. Duan Lingtian, you said earlier that you disdain to fight me. Now I want to see what you, Duan Lingtian, rely on to boast like that. Duan Lingtian's face sank, as he didn't expect that this Xu Qing would be so overbearing, and a flame of fury was lit ablaze within his heart. A flame that was difficult to restrain. Meanwhile, the students that stood afar had followed over and were looking at this scene from afar. Their gazes all descended onto the 2 figures that were in confrontation. One was a 20-plus-year-old young man. One was an 18-year-old youth. The young man was Xu Qing, the famous genius student within Paladin Academy, the formed #1 genius and publicly acknowledged #1 below the Origin Core stage in Paladin Academy. The youth was Duan Lingtian, a famous genius student within Paladin Academy as well, and when he'd just entered Paladin Academy, he didn't attract any public attention. Until after he took part in a life-and-death battle with another 9th level core formation student, revealed a cultivation at the 9th level of the core formation stage, and killed his opponent by relying upon a grade 7 spirit weapon. Only then did his name spread throughout the entire Paladin Academy. Since then, the halo of #1 genius within Paladin Academy moved from its place above Xu Qing's head to rest upon this youth's head. And today, the former number one genius and the present number one genius had confronted each other. What sort of sparks would their clash bring about? At this moment, everyone held their breaths and watched the scene before them in anticipation. They were convinced that following this would be a brilliant struggle between two evenly matched opponents. Being able to watch the battle between Duan Lingtian and Xu Qing with my own two eyes, even if I'm punished for being late, it's still worth it. Exactly. The former number one genius against the current number one genius, this is something that's hard to come by. The gazes of the surrounding students shone brightly and their faces were filled with excitement. Duan Rong was standing in the crowd, and a sneer appeared on the corners of his mouth as his icy cold gaze descended onto the violet-clothed youth. Duan Lingtian, let's see how you end today. Actually fighting with big brother Xu Qing, you're courting death. As a member of Myriad Link County's Duan clan, Duan Rong knew deeply of how terrifying the county governor's son, Xu Qing, was, and he didn't think Duan Lingtian would be a match for Xu Qing. Xu Qing, if you don't want to lose face, then hurry up and leave. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused as he looked at Xu Qing with a calm expression and seemed to be carefree. If you don't want to lose face, then hurry up and leave. When Duan Lingtian finished speaking, not only did Xu Qing's face turn gloomy, even the group of students that were spectating looked at Xu Qing with strange gazes. If Xu Qing were to leave now, it would undoubtedly be even more shameful. Duan Lingtian, everyone can boast. If you're a man, then fight me and prove to everyone that you indeed have the strength to disdain fighting me. Xu Qing had a burning gaze as he looked at Duan Lingtian, and origin energy flashed on the pitch-black grade 7 spirit sword in his hand. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Since you're bent on having your way and are unafraid of losing face, then I'll grant your wish. Duan Lingtian was clear in his heart. If he were to not prove himself, then Xu Qing would surely run his mouth endlessly. Since it had come to this, he had to completely destroy this Xu Qing's confidence and make him retreat after learning of the difficulties. I'll wait and see, Xu Qing snorted coldly with an arrogant expression. Then take this punch of mine. Duan Lingtian's voice exploded like thunder. Instantly, Duan Lingtian moved. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Duan Lingtian's moved as if his entire body had transformed into a spirit serpent. His speed was swift like a bolt of lightning. Above Duan Lingtian, 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Xu Qing moved right after him. As if transforming into a gust of wind, the pitch-black 3-foot-long blade within his hand flashed out and sword silhouettes flashed out as if transforming into a myriad of sword silhouettes. It was obviously an extremely profound sword skill. At the same time, 15 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Xu Qing. The moment Xu Qing attacked, he exploded forth with his entire strength and even combined the might of his spirit weapon when he exerted his strength. That's all you've got. If it was the former Duan Lingtian, he might have been slightly fearful when faced with Xu Qing's sword strike, but the current Duan Lingtian. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Duan Lingtian's body flashed, and the speed below his feet instantly rose a few levels before he instantly avoided Xu Qing's sword strike. Whoosh! Xu Qing chased. However, he quickly noticed that he was utterly incapable of catching up to Duan Lingtian, as Duan Lingtian's speed was impossible to keep up with. How is this possible? How can he possibly be so fast? When he noticed that another 4 ancient mammoth silhouettes had appeared above Duan Lingtian, a luster of disbelief was emitted from his eyes. The strength of 16 ancient mammoths. Oh my god, the strength of 16 ancient mammoths. Duan Lingtian didn't use his spirit weapon to attack and is only avoiding Xu Qing with his movement technique, in other words, without relying upon a spirit weapon and only drawing upon the energy of heaven and earth, Duan Lingtian is able to develop 16 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Looks like this Duan Lingtian has already broken through to the Origin Core stage. Only an Origin Core martial artist is able to possess such terrifying strength without using a spirit weapon. The first level of the Origin Core stage possesses a strength of 20 ancient mammoths. Duan Lingtian is obviously holding back now. The spectating group of students were dumbstruck for a moment before gasping with astonishment. Most of the people had faces full of disbelief. An 18-year-old Origin Core martial artist. Holy, what sort of monster is this? Duan Rong was dumbstruck as well when he saw the scene before him. No, it's impossible. How could this little bastard be an Origin Core martial artist? Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold as his body flashed before directly arriving behind Xu Qing. His right arm shook and struck out with a simple punch. Bang! The strength of 16 ancient mammoths exploded forth, smashing the defensive chi barrier on the surface of Shu Qing's body before blasting Shu Qing away. Bang! Shu Qing fiercely crashed onto the ground, and his body trembled as he continuously spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Duan Lingtian's gaze was calm as he indifferently swept Shu Qing with his gaze and slowly spoke. Now, what do you think? Do I, Duan Lingtian, have the strength to disdain to fight you? However, at this moment, Shu Qing seemed to have not heard what Duan Lingtian said. He had an agitated expression and his eyes dimmed. Obviously he had received a huge blow to his confidence. Humph! Duan Lingtian coldly swept Shu Qing with his gaze before calling Tianhu and directly walking towards his classroom. Most of the students that were present watched as Duan Lingtian left, and their eyes emitted astonishment and admiration. An 18-year-old Origin Core martial artist. This youth's natural talent had already completely surpassed his father's. Even during those years, Duan Rufeng only broke through to the Origin Core stage at the age of 20. How could they know that Duan Lingtian's cultivation was currently quite far off from the Origin Core stage, and the only reason he was capable of exerting such a terrifying force was because of the supreme cultivation method, the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique, that he cultivated. Shu Qing possessed the strength of 15 ancient mammoths when relying upon his grade 7 spirit sword to execute attacks, but before the strength of 16 ancient mammoths that this Duan Lingtian exerted empty-handedly, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. What you're saying is utter rubbish. The grade 7 spirit sword only amplifies the strength of attacks, but Shu Qing's speed was only propelled by the strength of 12 ancient mammoths. Duan Lingtian, on the hand, had a speed that was propelled by the strength of 16 ancient mammoths, and thus was completely not on the same level. The difference between the 9th level of the core formation stage and the 1st level of the origin core stage is too huge, and this is when Duan Lingtian hadn't ever exerted his entire strength. Yeah, if he had exerted his full strength, Shu Qing wouldn't even have the chance to swing his sword. The group of students discussed animatedly. Moreover, all their words, when heard by Shu Qing, were like pins pricking him, causing him to be nearly numbed. An 18-year-old origin core martial artist. Shu Qing suddenly felt that all these years of his life were wasted and he was still useless, and his dimmed eyes flickered with the gloominess of defeat. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian and Tianhu walked on the path towards the classroom, and Tianhu had a face full of extreme surprise. FK, Duan Lingtian, when did you step into the origin core stage? Tianhu seemed unconcerned, but he was slightly bitter in his heart. When he met Duan Lingtian for the first time within the Iron Blood Army's Genius Camp that day, Duan Lingtian was similarly a 4th-level core formation martial artist like him. But now he had only just broken through to the 7th level of the core formation stage 2 days ago, and originally thought that he could slowly catch up to Duan Lingtian's footsteps, but he shockingly noticed that Duan Lingtian had already broken through to the origin core stage. He felt a wave of powerlessness. Maybe I shouldn't compare myself to this freak, I'm practically just frustrating myself. Tianhu sighed inwardly. 184. Chapter 185, Crimson North's 5 Tigers. Duan Lingtian only lightly smiled in reply to Tianhu's question. In the eyes of a bystander, his strength was indeed something only an origin core martial artist was able to exert, and on this topic he didn't explain any further. After all, this was related to the cultivation method he cultivated, the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique. That was his greatest secret. If it were to be leaked, he would surely encounter complete annihilation. Duan Lingtian currently had only cultivated the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique's second form, the Raging Python form, and he could already feel how heaven-defying this cultivation method was. He could imagine that if the Nine Dragon War Sovereign technique were to be revealed to the public, even those true Void Stage powerhouses would probably have their interest aroused. Before long, Duan Lingtian and Tianhu parted ways, directly heading towards their respective classrooms. Within the classroom, the other 17 students had taken their seats, and only Duan Lingtian was left. Teacher. Duan Lingtian arrived at the classroom door and smiled apologetically to Sima Chongfeng. Sima Chongfeng didn't say anything and he nodded. Come in. Only now did Duan Lingtian enter the classroom and take his seat. Xiao Xuan sat behind Duan Lingtian and moved his head closer as he asked, with a mischievous smile, Duan Lingtian, although you used to arrive late as well, you've never been late for class, be truthful about it, did you do something bad last night and couldn't wake up this morning? Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes at Xiao Xuan as he angrily said, "Is that all you have in your brain?" Before long, the entire morning passed. At noon after class ended, Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu, and Xiao Xuan walked towards the cafeteria, and everywhere they passed, many students seemed to be saluting them with their gazes. Xiao Xuan looked at Duan Lingtian and Xiao Yu as he asked, "Is there something on our faces?" "There's nothing on yours nor Duan Lingtian's face. How about mine?" Xiao Yu felt it to be strange as well. Why were these people looking at them like this? Xiao Xuan glanced at Xiao Yu and said, "In all seriousness, there's nothing on yours either." Among the three of them, perhaps only Duan Lingtian was still able to maintain his composure, as he knew the reason. That's Duan Lingtian, the grade 1 student that stepped into the origin core stage at the mere age of 18. FK. It can't be, a grade 1 student at the origin core stage. Just at this moment, two nearby students stopped to stand and look at Duan Lingtian as they whispered in discussion. Due to the nearby distance, their voices were heard by Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan, and the two of them finally reacted. So it turned out that all those gazes of salute all this time were not because there was something on their faces, those people were all gazing at Duan Lingtian. "Duan Lingtian, you broke through to the origin core stage." Xiao Xuan and Xiao Yu had faces full of astonishment, and their eyes emitted a gleam of disbelief. This was really too much. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and maintained his silence. "FK, you can't have really broken through to the origin core stage, right? Besides that, why do all these people know that you've broken through to the origin core stage but we don't? Could it be that you came late to class this morning because you did something?" Xiao Xuan swore as he asked a string of questions. Even though Xiao Yu didn't speak, his eyes still stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian. "When you guys see Tianhu in a while, ask him yourselves." Duan Lingtian shrugged and was slightly helpless. Within the cafeteria, Duan Lingtian's group of three had only just sat when Tianhu arrived. Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan naturally were bound to ask him questions, and before long, under a narration with an assortment of voices and countenance of Tianhu, Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan finally knew of the cause and effect of the entire matter. Never had they imagined that Duan Lingtian being late to class today was actually because of Xu Qing. Xu Qing, they naturally knew who that was. A grade 2 student of Paladin Academy, and the publicly acknowledged #1 genius within Paladin Academy before Duan Lingtian's appearance. "Duan Lingtian, not only did you take away the title of #1 genius from that Xu Qing, but you even made him suffer a crushing defeat in public. He's bound to be inferior to you at every corner within Paladin Academy in the future." Xiao Xuan shook his head. He was slightly shocked within his heart, as he'd never imagined that this Duan Lingtian was formidable before he was able to destroy Xu Qing. Of course, he was even more shocked about Duan Lingtian's cultivation. Stepping into the origin core stage at the mere age of 18. Just thinking about it caused his scalp to go numb. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled indifferently. "I gave him a chance at that time, and it was he who was overbearing. Serves him right." Tianhu had a face full of pleasure due to Xu Qing's misfortune. Xiao Yu gazed at Duan Lingtian with a complicated gaze, and unknowingly, a trace of a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Presently, he was only a step away from the 7th level of the core formation stage, but Duan Lingtian had already stepped into the origin core stage. Although he'd long since had no intention of comparing himself to Duan Lingtian, he still felt slightly upset in his heart. Right. Suddenly, Tianhu seemed to have thought of something as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a slightly serious expression. "Duan Lingtian, I heard that Xu Qing's background isn't simple, he is the Myriad Link County's county governor's son." County governor's son? Duan Lingtian's brows knitted, and as he recalled the scene from this morning, he came to a sudden understanding. This morning, there was originally no sword within Xu Qing's hand, but later he obviously withdrew it from a spatial ring. At that time, Duan Lingtian was still slightly surprised that Xu Qing actually had a spatial ring. Moreover, that sword of his was a grade 7 spirit weapon. Now that he knew of Xu Qing's identity, he finally understood. The county governor's son. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed. There were only a total of 18 counties within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Moreover, he first severed the arm of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's son, Pei San. Following which, he beat the daughter of the Fair Sun County's county governor into a pig's head twice in succession. Now he had offended the Myriad Link County's county governor's son, Xu Qing. Within the 18 counties, he had already directly or indirectly offended 3 of them. Under the slightly worried gazes of Xiao Yu and the others, Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. What are you all doing? Don't forget that I've already offended a county governor since a long time ago. The Fair Sun County's county governor's daughter, Tong Li, hates me to her bones. Moreover, she's even the cousin of the 5th prince. Compared to that, this Shu Qing doesn't amount to much. Only now did Xiao Yu and the others recall that this fellow was one that stirred up a lot of trouble, and they all laughed bitterly. In fact, it's really nothing. That Shu Qing was overbearing himself, and you only defeated him but didn't injure him. The Myriad Link County's county governor probably wouldn't be so petty. Xiao Shuan lightly smiled as he spoke and eased up the atmosphere at their table. Xiao Yu and Tian Hu nodded in agreement. As for Duan Lingtian, he paid no attention to it. Myriad Link County. He wasn't even afraid of nobles like the 3rd prince and the 5th prince. How could he be afraid of a puny county governor? At this moment, the entire cafeteria was practically filled with discussion about Duan Lingtian revealing a cultivation at the Origin Core stage and defeating Shu Qing. Duan Lingtian once again became the focus of public attention. Duan Lingtian frowned, as he didn't like the feeling of being gazed at as if he were a monkey at the zoo, and he casually ate some food before leaving the cafeteria and heading to the large tree on the side of the martial arts practice grounds to cultivate. On the cafeteria pavilion, a gray-clothed old man currently had a face full of astonishment. That kid actually broke through to the Origin Core stage. At dusk, at the gate of Paladin Academy, Duan Lingtian parted ways with Xiao Yu and Xiao Shuan. After exiting the gate, he noticed that there were people watching him, and among those people, 2 were his men, Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian. The other 5 people were unfamiliar. However, the strength of these people weren't even at the nascent soul stage. A cold smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth as he walked swiftly towards a remote alley. There had been quite a few people who had lost their lives in succession within this alley, and without exception, all these people wanted to kill Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had only just entered the alley when he felt cold gusts of wind come from behind him. In the blink of an eye, 5 middle-aged men had surrounded him. Duan Lingtian noticed that the current 5 people looked at him with gazes that vaguely contained a trace of greed, and they were obviously seeking something. Looks like these people were requested by someone to do this and are only taking money to do a job, Duan Lingtian thought inwardly. You all are doing this job for money, right? I'll give you double the price of what that person gave you. Duan Lingtian looked at the man in the lead of the 5 people. This was a man with a scar on his face. He had a vicious expression, and with a glance, anyone would know that he wasn't a good person. Including the man with the scar, all 5 of them couldn't help but be stunned when they heard what Duan Lingtian said. Kid, the streets has its own rules. Since we Crimson North's 5 tigers have accepted the money and have concluded this deal, even if you pay 10 times the amount, it's still of no use. The man with a scar grunted coldly, and as he finished speaking, his words took a turn. Of course, although you can't escape death, if you want to buy the life of that person who sent us, as long as you pay us now, we guarantee to take care of that person after your death. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned after he heard what the man with a scar said. Even that is possible. Of course, we take money to do a job, we recognize money, not people. The man with a scar spoke as if it was natural and right. Then how much money must I pay for you to kill that person? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed and he held a smile within the corners of his mouth. The man with a scar didn't hesitate at all as he directly said, 100,000 silver. 100,000 silver. Duan Lingtian brows knitted. Then how much did he use to buy my life? You're a student of Paladin Academy, so your life is more expensive. 200,000 silver, the man with a scar said. 200,000 silver. Duan Lingtian was stunned for a moment before letting loose to a torrent of abuse under the dumbstruck gazes of the man with a scar and the 4 other men. FK. This young master's life is only worth 200,000 silver. 200,000 silver is already a lot, one of the men within the scarred man's group mumbled. 200,000 silver is a lot. Duan Lingtian sneered and raised his hand. A stack of silver bills appeared on his hand, and they all were of the 10,000 denomination. Now, there's 1 million silver in this young master's hand. As long as you can kill this young master will give it all to you. How about it? The scarred man's group of 5 were all dumbstruck when they heard what Duan Lingtian said. They'd done many business deals, but it was the first time they'd encountered such circumstances. You're speaking the truth. The scarred man fiercely gulped down a mouthful of saliva and had a face full of disbelief. You better not fool me, Wang Dahu, or else you'll have to suffer. The name of Wang Dahu is well known in the streets. How well known? Right at this moment, a chilly voice sounded from behind him. 185 Chapter 186, Investigating the person behind the scenes. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he looked at the two men who had walked over from afar. Why did you two come out so quickly? I haven't finished playing. Haven't finished playing. With the scarred man, Wang Dahu, in the lead, all of the Crimson North's 5 tigers were completely stunned when they heard what Duan Lingtian said, and a bad premonition arose within their hearts. They turned their heads around one by one and looked at the source of the voice. There, they saw 2 middle-aged men walking over shoulder to shoulder. Above each of the 2 middle-aged men were 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes, a total of 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out with them. Nascent, 7th level nascent soul martial artists. Wang Dahu's pupils constricted, his face filled with terror, and his legs started trembling. His other 4 brothers were no better than him, as they all had ghastly pale faces and didn't even dare to raise the suggestion to flee. What a joke! Before a 7th level nascent soul martial artist, it was absolutely impossible for them to have the opportunity to flee. Now, they only hoped that his violet-clothed youth would spare them. Putong, under Wang Dahu's lead, the 5 of them directly knelt around Duan Lingtian and lowered their heads. They seemed extremely dispirited. Slap. Wang Dahu raised his hand and gave himself a slap, and he pleaded for mercy with a trembling voice. Young master, we have eyes, but we failed to see and have offended you. You're a great and magnanimous man. Just think of us as trash and spare our lives. Now he finally realized that this youth was only just playing with them earlier. At the same time that he was frightened to the point terror, a trace of rage seemed to arise within his heart. This rage was naturally towards that person who paid them to kill the youth. If he knew that the target this time had 2 7th level nascent soul martial artists beside him, not to mention 200,000 silver, even if he were to be given 10 million silver, he still wouldn't dare. Even though the money was tempting, his life was more important. Duan Lingtian was startled by the actions of the 5 of them, as he never expected them to be so straightforward. Weren't you all some Crimson North's 5 tigers? Can't you have a little bit of backbone? Duan Lingtian glanced at Wang Dahu before lightly smiling. Young master, before you, we can only be the Crimson North's 5 cats. Wang Dahu had a long face as he laughed bitterly. Now he only hoped that the violet-clothed youth before him would spare the lives of him and his brothers. Crimson North's 5 cats. That does suit you all. Zhang Qian, who was standing beside Duan Lingtian, couldn't help but laugh. Crimson North's 5 cats, make a few sounds for me. Zhao Gang laughed as well, and his calm gaze descended upon Wang Dahu's group of 5. Meow. Wang Dahu's face flushed. Although he felt embarrassed, when he thought about how his life was within their hands, he could only lower his head and cry like a cat. Meow, meow, the other 4 people started crying out as well, and their bodies that knelt started trembling. They knew in their hearts that as long as this youth were to order it, their heads and bodies would surely be separated. Duan Lingtian frowned. When he saw Wang Dahu's group of 5's terrified appearances, he didn't even have the interest to teach them a lesson anymore. I can spare your lives, but you must tell me who paid to have me killed. I wonder if you all want to continue acting the part of unyielding men and continue to abide by the so-called street rules. Or do you all want your own lives? Lives, we want our lives. Hearing that they had a chance to live, Wang Dahu's group of 5's eyes shone as they spoke at the same time. What, now you don't care about rules? A cold smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. Wang Dahu's group of 5 laughed bitterly. Their lives were on the line, what rules would they care about? No rule was more important than their lives. Speak, who paid for my life? Duan Lingtian asked indifferently. Hammer 7, Wang Dahu said. 1. Hammer 7, do you know who he is? Duan Lingtian frowned. Yes, he's a gangster within the Imperial City's outer city. Wang Dahu hurriedly nodded. Let's go, take me to him. Duan Lingtian looked at the sky to judge the time of day. At this time, the city gate leading to the outer city had only just opened, and after he finished dealing with this, he should be able to be back before the gate closes. Imperial City, Outer City. Duan Lingtian sat within a guest room in an inn and leisurely drank some tea. Besides Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, who were standing behind him. Wang Dahu respectfully stood at the side with a perturbed expression. Wang Dahu, didn't you say that Hammer 7 was near here? It's already been more than 10 minutes and your 4 brothers haven't returned. They wouldn't have walked out on you, right? Duan Lingtian looked at Wang Dahu as a trace of coldness flashed within his eyes. Don't worry, young master, we Crimson North's 5 tigers. Wang Dahu had only just started speaking when he noticed Duan Lingtian's fierce gaze, and he hurriedly corrected himself. No, it's Crimson North's 5 cats, we Crimson North's 5 cats are famous for our loyalty. This is something young master can be at ease of. I hope it's as you say. Duan Lingtian swept Wang Dahu with his cold and indifferent gaze before continuing to drink his tea. A cup of tea was quickly finished by him. Right at this moment, Zhang Qian, open the door. Duan Lingtian's brows knitted as he suddenly spoke. Although Zhang Qian felt it to be slightly strange, he still went to open the room's door. Meanwhile, he heard the sound of footsteps coming from outside, and it was the other 4 men of the Crimson North's 5 tigers carrying a sack as they returned. There was obviously a person within the sack that was making crying sounds, and he was unceasingly struggling. After they had all come in, Zhang Qian closed the door and looked at the violet-clothed youth that sat there with a carefree expression. He felt surprised inwardly. The sound insulation effect of this inn was extremely good, and he didn't notice in the slightest that the other 4 members of the Crimson North's 5 tigers had returned. How did the young master know? Not only Zhang Qian, but even Zhao Gang's pupils couldn't help but constrict now. They both realized that there was still much they had to learn from the young master. Young master, we've brought him. The other 4 members of the Crimson North's 5 tigers tossed the sack onto the ground. A shrill cry echoed out from within the sack before the 4 of them opened it up. A young man who had his hands tied behind his back appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. The young man had a ball of cloth stuffed within his mouth. He was currently making mumbling noises in rage and was furiously staring at the Crimson North's 5 tigers. If you dare make another noise, I don't mind taking a slice at your throat. Duan Lingtian extended his hand, and his violet myrtle flexible sword seemed to transform into a violet bolt of lightning as it descended onto the young man's neck, causing the young man to be terrified to the point that his body trembled and he hurriedly shut his mouth. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian started to size up this young man before him. The violet myrtle flexible sword within Duan Lingtian's hand trembled as it flicked out the ball of cloth within the young man's mouth. Even with the ball of cloth gone, the young man still obediently kept his mouth shut and didn't dare to make a sliver of a sound, as the sword on his neck was no joke. Duan Lingtian stared fixedly at the young man before indifferently speaking. You should be Hammer 7, speak, who asked you to get someone to kill me? Hammer 7's face went deathly pale. You're Duan Lingtian. Slap, Zhang Qian's body moved. He raised his hand before slapping Hammer 7 in the face, and said, with a cold and indifferent voice, as the young master's name something you can speak. Yes, young master, young master. Hammer 7 was stunned by the blow and didn't dare hesitate as he hurriedly nodded. The name, Duan Lingtian, was spread and gave rise to much discussion within the Imperial City as of late. As long as it was a person from the Imperial City, they practically all knew who Duan Lingtian was, and thus he naturally knew as well. So even if someone had asked him to get someone to kill Duan Lingtian, he didn't dare brazenly commit it. Thus, he could only find some rash people who'd only just arrived at the Imperial City and hadn't heard of Duan Lingtian's name and get them to go kill him. He originally thought that the matter would go smoothly, but now it seemed that what happened was completely different from what he'd imagined. He regretted it now. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have been greedy and gotten these unreliable fellows to do the deed. What Crimson North's 5 tigers? The name sounds great, but in the end they were captured. I'm asking you who asked you to get someone to kill me? Duan Lingtian's gaze was fierce, and his icy cold voice seemed to emanate from an icy cold pit. Young master, I can't, if I were to speak, I'd die. Hammer 7's face was ghastly pale as he laughed bitterly. Believe it or not, I can make you die right now. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and the violet myrtle flexible sword flashed out with a whoosh, as it cut off an eyebrow hair from Hammer 7. Hammer 7's face went deathly pale as he said, in panic, Young master, I'll speak. I'll speak. Speak, who is it? Duan Lingtian's tone was calm, but mixed within was a breathtaking rage. He wanted to know who the heck wanted his life. No matter who it was, he wouldn't let that person off. It's Hong Ji, young master, it's Hong Ji. He gave me 3 million silver and asked me to find some honest people to deal with you, Hammer 7 hurriedly said. 3 million silver. Wang Dahu and the other 4 Crimson North's 5 tigers' faces went grim as they stared angrily at Hammer 7. If it wasn't for the presence of Duan Lingtian, they'd probably have charged at Hammer 7 at the first moment and killed him. This Hammer 7 had taken 3 million silver from another and only gave them 200,000 silver. And it nearly cost them their lives. Hongji, Duan Lingtian frowned, as he felt that the matter was becoming even more complicated. Young master, I've heard of this Hongji. He's a local tyrant within the Imperial City Outer City. Allegedly, he has a relationship with the Shao clan's patriarch. Zhao Gang seemed to recall something as he slowly spoke. Duan Lingtian nodded, and his icy cold gaze once again descended onto Hammer 7 as he indifferently said, hand over the 3 million silver. Yes, young master, I have 2,800,000 silver here. The other 200,000 silver is with them. Hammer 7 obediently withdrew a stack of silver from his pocket and didn't forget to look at Wang Dahu's group. Wang Dahu glared at Hammer 7 and didn't dare hesitate as he obediently withdrew the 200,000 silver. Wang Dahu, Duan Lingtian suddenly spoke. Young master, I'm here. Wang Dahu took a step forward with incomparable respect. Kill him, and make it clean. Duan Lingtian's voice was calm to the point that it was terrifying, and it caused Hammer 7's face to go deathly pale. But unfortunately, he didn't even have the chance to beg for mercy when Wang Dahu punched his head apart. Above Wang Dahu, 100 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. 7th level of the Origin Core stage. A trace of satisfaction flashed within Wang Dahu's eyes as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of gratitude. Thank you, young master, for allowing us 5 brothers to vent our frustrations. 186 Chapter 187, Going After Easy Prey. Wang Dahu. Just at this time, Duan Lingtian looked at Wang Dahu, and Duan Lingtian's gaze focused on him as he spoke in a slightly cold voice. I'll give you a chance, take the 200,000 silver in your hands and leave. As for the lives of your 4 brothers, they must remain here. Or else all of you must die. Duan Lingtian abruptly turning hostile completely exceeded the expectations of Wang Dahu's group of 5, and their faces all went pale. You're going back on your words. Wang Dahu's face went grim. He stared furiously at Duan Lingtian, as he never thought that Duan Lingtian wouldn't keep to his word. You're courting death. Zhang Qian's icy cold voice sounded as he kicked out his leg in a flash, kicking Wang Dahu flying into the wall. He fell to the ground with a crash. Wang Dahu spat out a few mouthful of bloods in succession, and his rage-filled gaze that still had unwillingness mixed within descended onto Duan Lingtian. Boss. The other 4 members of the Crimson North's 5 tigers were incomparably grievous and indignant. Wang Dahu, this is the last chance I'm giving you. I hope you cherish it. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Wang Dahu as he spoke indifferently. Even if I, Wang Dahu, died, I would still not abandon my brothers. Wang Dahu gnashed his teeth. Although he was afraid of death, when he thought about how he had to use the lives of his brothers who'd gone through thick and thin with him in exchange for his own life, he refused Duan Lingtian. Even if he were to survive out of luck, his heart wouldn't be at ease for the rest of his life. Boss, leave. Boss, we know you're loyal, but we still hope that you can live on and help take care of our families. Boss, live well, comma. The other 4 seemed to have realized that they were faced with imminent danger now and hurriedly persuaded him. 2nd brother, 3rd brother, 4th brother, 5th brother. Wang Dahu's eyes were filled with blood as he looked at the 4 men before him. Zhang Qian's and Zhao Gang's brows twitched. As members of the army, they were particular about loyalty towards friends and family. When they saw Wang Dahu's group of 5 like this, admiration couldn't help but be aroused within their hearts, and they felt sympathy. Right when they were about to speak and ask Duan Lingtian to show mercy. Congratulations, Wang Dahu, you've passed my test. The icy cold expression on Duan Lingtian's face instantly melted, and he picked up the 2,800,000 silver. Hammer 7 took out and put away 2 million silver before tossing over the other 800,000 silver to Wang Dahu. After you've cleaned this place up, take this 1 million silver and leave the Imperial City with your 4 brothers. The sudden change caused Wang Dahu's group of 5 to be stupefied. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had smiles on their faces instead, and the gazes with which they looked at Duan Lingtian were even more full of admiration. Thank you, young master, thank you, young master. Wang Dahu's group of 5 once again knelt down and repeatedly kowtowed. This time they truly were grateful to Duan Lingtian. "I'll leave this place for you to deal with. I still have matters to attend to. I'll be leaving first." Duan Lingtian swept Wang Dahu's group of 5 with his gaze, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He left with Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. "Young master, if Wang Dahu had abandoned his 4 brothers and left, what would happen?" Outside the inn, Zhang Qian followed behind Duan Lingtian and couldn't help himself from asking. If he chose to abandon his brothers, then they would all die. Duan Lingtian's tone was calm. It was as if he was talking about an extremely normal matter. In his heart, if Wang Dahu were to choose in that way, then even he couldn't convince himself to let Wang Dahu's group go. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang exhaled a deep breath of cold air when they heard what Duan Lingtian said. They glanced at Duan Lingtian in tacit understanding and with profound gazes. They didn't have a shred of doubt that once this youth matured, he would surely be an outstanding person. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused as he looked at Zhang Qian. "Zhang Qian, do you know where Hongji usually is?" Zhang Qian was rather acquainted with Hongji, and before long, Duan Lingtian sought out Hongji. After some time of coercion and threats, Duan Lingtian pried open Hongji's mouth and gave him over to be taken care of by Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Unexpectedly, the 2 of them directly killed Hongji. "You too?" Duan Lingtian was stunned. Zhang Qian laughed slyly. "Young master, this Hongji's committed all sorts of wicked deeds, and I've wanted to teach him a lesson since long ago." "Then why didn't you two teach him a lesson before?" "We were afraid of his relationship with the Shao clan's patriarch before this." "Why aren't you afraid now? We've already killed 2 Su clan direct descendant disciples, and we've already put everything on the line. This Hongji doesn't make a difference." Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless towards the reason Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang provided. Why did it sound like it was he who led Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang astray? "This Hongji actually has a spatial ring as well, 30 million silver." After Duan Lingtian established ownership over Hongji's spatial ring and saw the huge pile of silver within, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Logically speaking, it's impossible for this Hongji to be so rich. It's probably the money that Duan clan member gave him. Zhang Qian guessed. "Humph, this Hongji said he only received 5 million silver, we were nearly cheated by him." Duan Lingtian snorted coldly. "The inner city gates are going to close soon. Let's go." Now that he had achieved his objective, the remaining matters were within the inner city. Duan Rulei. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused as a breathtaking killing intent arose within him. Duan Lingtian found out from Hongji that the Duan clan's second master's men were the ones that sought his help, and the person behind the scenes became obvious. It was precisely the Duan clan's second master, Duan Rulei. After entering the inner city, Duan Lingtian said to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, "You two observe Duan Rulei tonight. I want to know if he's returned to the Duan clan estate or gone to another place. After you've finished your investigation, return and report to me." "Yes, young master." Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian hurriedly nodded. They had already guessed what the young master had planned. The young master intends to kill that Duan Rulei. Even though they knew that Duan Rulei was the Duan clan's second master and had an extraordinary identity, they had already killed 2 Su clan direct descendants, thus they didn't feel like anything was wrong with it. According to what the young master said, as long it's done cleanly and no clues are left behind, then there's no danger of anything going wrong. The night was dark with strong gusts of wind. It was a perfect night to kill someone. Outside a courtyard house within the inner city, 3 black-clothed and masked figures silently leapt over the wall and snuck into the courtyard house. They were precisely Duan Lingtian, Zhang Qian, and Zhao Gang. After Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang tracked him for an entire night, they confirmed that Duan Rulei had arrived at this courtyard house and didn't return to the Duan clan estate. This courtyard house was double the size of the one Duan Lingtian possessed. Presently, the lights within were completely extinguished, and it was extremely quiet. Seems slightly off. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian's sensitive spiritual force trembled, as he had vaguely perceived something. Not only that, he even noticed that the 2 little pythons inside his sleeve were now restless as if they had noticed something. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian brought Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang along as he continued forward. Since he'd come, he didn't wish to return empty-handed. Moreover, as far as he was concerned, what threat could a cripple pose? Even if he had someone protecting him, Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid of it. As long as it wasn't a half-step void stage expert, he could deal with it by relying on his bone corrosion inscription. Whoosh! Right when Duan Lingtian, Zhang Qian, and Zhao Gang had just arrived at the center of the front courtyard, a clear sound echoed out and lights were lit in an instant, illuminating the entire front courtyard. Whoosh! 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 At the same time, 3 figures flashed out and surrounded Duan Lingtian's group of 3. When these 3 people moved, there were 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above each of them, 3 7th-level nascent soul martial artists. The 3 men who appeared were 3 old men, and they looked at Duan Lingtian's group of 3 with a burning gaze. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted and his face went grim, but because his face was covered, nobody was able to notice it. Never had he imagined that he would actually be noticed. However, he didn't mind 3 7th-level nascent soul martial artists. As long as he could get Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang to join forces and kill one of them, he could use the bone corrosion inscription on his spatial ring and the one on Violet Myrtle flexible sword to instantly kill the other 2. Duan Lingtian, needless to say, I've underestimated you. Right at this moment, accompanied by an icy cold voice, a middle-aged man with a dignified expression walked out slowly from the house's main building. A green-clothed old man followed by the side of the middle-aged man. Although it was the first time he had seen this middle-aged man, when he looked the middle-aged man's brow, Duan Lingtian was able to notice a similarity to Duan Lingxing, and thus Duan Lingtian guessed his identity. Duan Rulei. However, Duan Lingtian's attention wasn't on Duan Rulei but on the green-clothed old man beside Duan Rulei. The green-clothed old man had a thin figure, and his entire body seemed scrawny, but he gave Duan Lingtian a very profound feeling, an extremely dangerous feeling. Based on the experiences of Rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Lingtian knew that this old man wasn't ordinary. The old man's strength might even surpass an ordinary 9th-level nascent soul martial artist. Half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. At this moment, he could feel his heartbeat getting faster. Probably isn't a half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian consoled himself. What, Duan Lingtian, you're still unwilling to be frank and meet this second uncle of yours? Duan Rulei's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian's figure as he spoke indifferently. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and removed his mask to reveal his face. Since he'd been recognized, there was no reason to continue wearing it. Now he could almost be certain that he'd been entrapped by Duan Rulei tonight. Duan Rulei obviously provided him with the illusion of going after easy prey. As expected, he slightly resembles Duan Rufeng. Duan Rulei's gaze focused when he saw Duan Lingtian's appearance, and a sense of rage seemed to arise within him. It was as if he had returned to the past and once again recalled the scene that year when Duan Rufeng crippled his Dantian. I'm extremely curious, how'd you know I was coming? Duan Lingtian looked at Duan Rulei as he asked. It can only be said that those 2 beside you were unprofessional when trailing me. They were see-through by Senior Ku since the beginning. As he spoke up to this point, Duan Rulei slightly stopped for a moment and smiled to the green-clothed old man beside him with a smile that seemed to contain a sense of reverence mixed within. Young master, we're sorry. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang never expected that the problem arose because of them, and their pupils constricted as they apologized with bitter tones. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at the green-clothed old man. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had followed him for some time and had improved their tracking skills. Duan Lingtian was certain that even if they were to go trail an ordinary 9th-level nascent soul martial artist, they might not be noticed. Could it be that this green-clothed old man was really a half-step void stage powerhouse? A trace of coldness abruptly arose within Duan Lingtian's heart. 187 Chapter 188, Critical Moment. Duan Lingtian, how is it? Are you afraid now? A trace of mockery was mixed within Duan Rulei's gaze. It was as if he wanted to see Duan Lingtian's terrified expression. Afraid? Duan Lingtian's gaze focused when faced with Duan Rulei's question, and he smiled indifferently. Why should I be afraid? Humph. Duan Rulei snorted coldly. You're about to die and you still dare be stubborn. Then I'll make it clear to you, this is my private courtyard house. Including Senior Ku and those 3, they're not members of the Duan clan, so don't you think that they'll give consideration to the fact you're a Duan clan direct descendant and show mercy. Therefore, I'll undoubtedly die today, right? Duan Lingtian's tone was calm. To outsiders, it would seem as if he'd given no thought to life and death and was completely indifferent to it. It's good that you know. Duan Rulei's face had a layer of frost on it as he sneered, now, do you regret killing my son? If I say I regret it, could it be that you'd let me go? Duan Lingtian asked rhetorically. He still had a carefree expression on his face. It's naturally impossible. Today, you must die no matter what. Duan Rulei's gaze went cold when he proclaimed his determination to kill Duan Lingtian. Then doesn't that suffice? If I regret it, I'll die. If I don't regret it, I'll still die. Why should I regret? Maybe I, Duan Lingtian, will have things to be sorry about during my lifetime, and there will be a moment that I feel regret. However, I've never once regretted killing your son. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. Duan Lingtian's gaze was like a sword as it focused onto Duan Rulei. He spoke in a neither humble nor arrogant manner. Good, good. Duan Rulei started laughing out of extreme fury. As expected of the son of Duan Rufeng, you sure enough possess the demeanor he had all those years ago. Subsequently, Duan Rulei's gaze sized up Duan Lingtian. I heard from my nephew that your cultivation had currently stepped into the origin core stage. If I remember correctly, you seem to be only 18 this year, an 18-year-old origin core martial artist. In terms of natural talent, you're virtually more monstrous and heaven-defying than your father all those years ago. But unfortunately, you're going to die here today. Obviously, Duan Rulei had heard from Duan Rong about what happened at Paladin Academy this morning. Duan Lingtian relied upon his cultivation at the origin core stage to defeat the former #1 genius of Paladin Academy, Xu Qing. An 18-year-old at the origin core stage. The green-clothed old man beside Duan Rulei spoke, which was a scene that was hard to come by. His voice was slightly hoarse, and a strange luster flickered within his eyes. Not to mention the Crimson Sky Kingdom, even in the younger generation of the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, I'm afraid such natural talent can still be considered to be at the top. How unfortunate. However, being able to kill such a monstrous talent in my lifetime can truly be considered as good fortune. A trace of cold intention slowly appeared on the corners of the green-clothed old man's mouth. On his body, strands of a bizarre aura stretched out. Duan Lingtian's sensitive spiritual force reacted to this aura at the first possible moment, causing his pupils to constrict. Half-step void stage. Now he could finally be completely certain. The old man before him was a half-step void stage powerhouse. You know of the half-step void stage? The green-clothed old man was briefly surprised when he heard what Duan Lingtian said, and his pair of strange eyes flickered with a sheen of teasing intentions. Looks like you aren't simple, kid, right? Someone who's able to control 2 7th-level nascent soul martial artists should have some ability. Since when did an existence at the half-step void stage become a lackey for others? Moreover, being a lackey for a 9th-level body-tempering cripple. A cold smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth as he mocked. The green-clothed old man didn't give any reaction when Duan Rulei's face went gloomy. Duan Lingtian, don't you talk nonsense and sow discord amongst me and Senior Ku. Senior Ku is my esteemed guest, and I've always treated him like an elder. Kid, no matter how great you are at talking, it's still a waste of breath. If I were you, I would kneel and beg for mercy and kowtow to the second master, and maybe second master's mood might turn good and leave your corpse intact. The green-clothed old man didn't get angry or embarrassed. His voice was calm, but within it was a breathtaking coldness. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into the judge of life and death in hell, and Duan Lingtian was only an ordinary person waiting to be judged. Kneel and beg for mercy. Corpse intact. The cold smile on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth grew even wider, and his fierce gaze descended onto Duan Rulei. Asking me to kowtow and beg for mercy? Old man, are you so old that even your brain isn't working? Can a cripple like him bear to receive it? Is a cripple like him worthy? Duan Lingtian. Duan Rulei's face was crimson red as he burst into rage. In these years, although he had lost his cultivation, his status in the Duan clan was extremely important. Who'd dare call him a cripple to his face? Now Duan Lingtian had repeatedly called him cripple, and this utterly enraged him. Senior Ku, I'll have to trouble you. Duan Rulei took a deep breath as killing intent flashed within his eyes. He looked at the green-clothed old man, as he didn't plan to waste his breath on Duan Lingtian anymore. Xing, father will take revenge for you right away. Duan Rulei's icy cold gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian as if he'd already seen the scene of Duan Lingtian dead on the ground. The green-clothed old man's expressions was extremely gloomy. He gave orders to the 3 old men that were surrounding Duan Lingtian's group of 3, then he moved his gaze that was filled with mockery onto Duan Lingtian. You three, take care of those two 7th level nascent soul martial artists. I'll personally deal with this kid, an 18-year-old Origin Core martial artist. Kid, I'll always remember you for my entire life. You'll be the first peerless genius to die at my hands. Yes. The three old men respectfully obeyed the orders of the green-clothed old man, and their bodies flashed before instantly pouncing towards Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out in tow. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's pupils constricted. They could only enter into battle with these three enemies that were evenly matched with them. Their enemies were more in number after all, and they were at a disadvantage in next to no time. Kid, you're going to die right away. Could it be that you aren't afraid? As the green-clothed old man took each step, the mockery in his eyes grew even darker. If I were afraid, could it be that you'd give me a way out? Duan Lingtian sneered, and he looked at the green-clothed old man as if he was looking at an idiot. You're courting death. The green-clothed old man's face went grim when he noticed Duan Lingtian's strange gaze. He got angry from embarrassment, and a killing intent that blotted out the sky and covered up the earth arose from him. This Duan Lingtian actually enraged Senior Ku. The corners of Duan Rulei's mouth curled into a cold smile when he saw this scene. Old goat, could it be that you really think you can kill me? Duan Lingtian had a calm gaze as he looked at the extremely enraged green-clothed old man that desired to kill him. Stop acting. The old man had a face full of disdain as he swiftly walked forward. Right at this critical moment, Duan Lingtian's leg jerked and origin energy rose explosively to allow him to flash backwards at an extremely swift speed. Then he explosively shouted, Uncle Ni, you still plan on watching the show? The green-clothed old man was stunned and stopped his footsteps. Duan Rulei couldn't help but frown. Kid, I originally intended for you to suffer a little longer so you wouldn't dare act recklessly again, but never had I imagined that I'd actually let you notice me. Accompanied by a helpless but hearty laugh, a figure flashed in from outside the courtyard house and lightly descended before Duan Lingtian, protecting Duan Lingtian behind himself. This was a middle-aged man, and his entire body emitted a peerlessly domineering aura. It was precisely the Divine Might Marquis, Ni Yuan. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth slightly curled up and held a faint smile within. Not long after Duan Rulei and the green-clothed old man appeared, he noticed Ni Yuan, who had concealed himself at the side. This was the reason why he could maintain that careless expression from start till finish. He understood in his heart that with Ni Yuan here, he couldn't die. General, Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang pulled away from their three opponents and saluted respectfully as they gazed at Ni Yuan. Divine Might Marquis. Duan Rulei's face went grim, as he knew of the friendship between Duan Lingtian's father and the Divine Might Marquis all those years ago. For a moment, a bad premonition arose within his heart. But in next to no time, he caught his breath and relaxed. The Divine Might Marquis was in existence at the half-step void stage, and thus his strength was similar to Senior Ku's. His side still firmly had the upper hand. You're the Divine Might Marquis. The green-clothed old man's gaze descended onto Ni Yuan, and a trace of viciousness was mixed within. I have heard that Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan's strength is shocking and that he is in existence at the half-step void stage. Today, this old man will seek guidance for a few moves from the Divine Might Marquis. Ni Yuan glanced at the old man indifferently. I'll naturally accompany you if you want to seek guidance from me, but unfortunately, your opponent today isn't me. As Ni Yuan finished speaking, he moved. Whoosh. Duan Lingtian only felt a flash before his eyes, and Ni Yuan had already vanished from where he stood. In the next moment, bang, 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 the three existences at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage were all dead. Duan Lingtian's pupils couldn't help but constrict, and his heart trembled as he gazed upon Ni Yuan, who seemed to instantly return to where he stood before. From the ability which Ni Yuan revealed earlier, he was obviously only a step away from the true void stage. It looked like the natural talent in the martial Dao of this Uncle Ni of his was extremely high. You've already arrived at that last step. The green-clothed old man was originally still wondering about what Ni Yuan said earlier, but when he saw the ability Ni Yuan revealed, his face went gloomy. Even within the half-step void stage, there's a slight difference in strength between each martial artist. Compared to him, Ni Yuan had undoubtedly gone farther and only lacked the last step before becoming a true void stage martial artist. In other words, a void-prying powerhouse. Whoosh. At almost the exact same moment that the green-clothed old man's face went gloomy, a figure silently snuck into the courtyard house and descended beside Ni Yuan. The person had a big and tall figure and wore a black outfit, and his face was covered by a Ghost King mask, and thus his face couldn't be seen clearly. Duan Lingtian's face went slightly pale. He was actually unable to perceive the existence of this person in the slightest. There was only one possibility. This person was a void-prying powerhouse. A true void stage powerhouse. In the next moment, a scene that made Duan Lingtian even more surprised appeared. The old man who was still ferocious looking a moment ago, at the instant the ghost-masked man appeared, his face went deathly pale without a trace of blood, and he even directly knelt down on the ground with a putong sound as he trembled. Leader. The old man's voice contained infinite terror mixed within. This was a terror that stemmed from his heart, a terror that stemmed from his soul. 188 Chapter 189, Void Advancement Pill. Before the ghost-masked man, the old man didn't have any intention of resisting. As far as the old man was concerned, before the ghost-masked man, any resistance was futile, and kneeling down to plead for mercy might be the only way to obtain a way out. The ghost-masked man moved. His right hand slowly extended outward, and precisely at this instant, terrifying origin energy raged atop his right hand before moving to gather together. A saber of light condensed from origin energy carried a mysterious and terrifying aura as it streaked past the old man's neck before he could even react to it. The old man, who was just trembling a moment ago, was instantly separated into two halves. Blood stained the entire ground and transformed into a small stream of blood. A half-step void stage powerhouse died just like that. Duan Lingtian had an unrealistic feeling arise within his heart. Only after the ghost-masked man's body jerked and instantly vanished before him did Duan Lingtian come back to his senses. If it wasn't for the old man's corpse being before his eyes, he would even doubt that the ghost-masked man had actually appeared. The green-clothed old man was a powerhouse that had stepped into the half-step void stage, but before the ghost-masked man, he seemed to be like paper. Take care of the rest yourself. Ni Yuan's voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian's eyes flickered with a fierce light when he heard what Ni Yuan said, and his icy cold gaze descended onto Duan Rulei, who'd long since been stunned on the spot. Duan Rulei had a deathly pale expression, but he didn't flee, as even if he wanted to flee, with his mere 9th-level body tempering stage cultivation, he would not be able to go far. Everyone present, even Duan Lingtian, whose cultivation was the lowest, was still capable of easily catching up to him. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Duan Lingtian's body moved as if he had transformed into a spirit serpent, instantly flashing to arrive before Duan Rulei. Duan Rulei seemed as if he'd realized that he was facing imminent danger, and simply risked everything as he spoke with a vicious gaze. Duan Lingtian, you're in luck that the Divine Might Marquis actually helped you, however, even if I become a ghost, I'll still not let you off. I wasn't afraid when you were still a man, could it be that I would fear you as a ghost? Duan Lingtian felt it to be laughable. Because of the ghost-masked man's appearance, Duan Lingtian felt slightly depressed, so he didn't waste his breath on Duan Rulei. His violet myrtle flexible sword flashed out to directly end Duan Rulei's life. At the same time, he also put away Duan Rulei's spatial ring. He could imagine how this Duan Rulei, as the one who managed most of the Duan clan's businesses, would surely have extremely impressive amounts of wealth in his possession. Uncle Ni, who was that earlier? Duan Lingtian put away Duan Rulei's spatial ring within his own spatial ring. He didn't even have the time to establish ownership on it before his gaze descended upon the nearby Ni Yuan. He could tell that his Uncle Ni should know of that person's identity, otherwise, he wouldn't have said what he said to the green-clothed old man. But unfortunately, your opponent today isn't me. This sentence was more than enough to prove that Ni Yuan knew the ghost-masked man. He's an extremely terrifying person. A trace of fear appeared on Ni Yuan's face. He isn't a friend of Uncle Ni. Duan Lingtian was stunned. Ni Yuan laughed bitterly. Of course not. Maybe I, the Divine Might Marquis, might look superior in the eyes of others, but in his eyes, I amount to nothing. I only happened to encounter him on my way here. The reason he came here was precisely to punish this traitor. As Ni Yuan spoke, he gazed upon the green-clothed old man's corpses, whose head and body had been separated. Traitor. This old man with a cultivation that had stepped into the half-step void stage was actually a former underling of that ghost-masked man. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian came to an understanding. That ghost-masked man was a true void stage powerhouse after all. And thus it wasn't weird that he had such an underling. Uncle Ni, according to my knowledge, there are only 3 true void stage powerhouses within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Besides the imperial families and grandfather Ni, there seems to only be the powerhouse from the ghastly shadow. Could it be that the person from before is him? Duan Lingtian gazed at Ni Yuan as if he wanted to discern the answer from his face. Ni Yuan lightly smiled but didn't state anything, then his body moved to fly and leave. You two, help this kid clean this place up. Duan Rulei is the Duan clan's second master after all, so you better not let the Duan clan find out it was you. Yes, General. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had faces full of respect as they sent of Ni Yuan with their gazes. So mysterious. Duan Lingtian shook his head and didn't think of it any longer. In any case, whether or not that person was the void stage powerhouse of Ghastly Shadow had nothing to do with him. Duan Lingtian slowly walked out as he removed the spatial rings from that green-clothed old man and the 3 old men one by one. Subsequently, with the help of Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, he first incinerated all the corpses before tossing a ball of flame to burn the entire courtyard house. Flames shot into the sky as if raging flames were burning a city. Duan Lingtian's group of 3, however, walked out from within the burning flames and slowly vanished at the end of the road. Meanwhile, they could hear waves of people crying out in alarm from behind them. The matter was finally resolved. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief, but when he recalled what happened today, he still felt a lingering fear within his heart. If it wasn't for Uncle Ni appearing in time, his head would probably have been far from his body at this moment, as he didn't think that the ghost-masked man would have saved him. Maybe in the eyes of the ghost-masked man, all life was as worthless as straw and not worth mentioning. After he returned to his own house, Duan Lingtian entered his room and fell into a deep slumber. But right at this moment, the entire Duan clan was completely stirred. Duan Rulei, who played a decisive role in the Duan clan and controlled most of the clan's businesses, was burned to death in the night, and his courtyard house in the inner city was burned to ashes with him. Within the Duan clan estate's audience hall, Patriarch Duan Ruhuo had a gloomy expression and gaze like lightning. Second brother is gone just like that. No matter who did it, even if my Duan clan has to dig 3 feet into the ground, we must still find the culprit to burn his bones and scatter his ashes so that we may console second brother's spirit in heaven. The patriarch is right. The second master left without any clear reason, and as such this ought to be done. Most of the Duan clan elders that were present nodded in agreement. However, when one looked at their expressions were mostly filled with indifference. Maybe in their opinion, Duan Rulei was just a cripple in the end. To them, with Duan Rulei dead, the businesses that were originally controlled by him would become unoccupied, and they could obtain a share as well. To a certain extent, the death of Duan Rulei was a good thing to them. Of course, they would only dare think like this in their hearts. The Duan clan's 4th master, Duan Ruhong, had a gloomy expression. It's really been troubled times lately. First it was the 2 direct descendants of the Su clan that died in succession, now second brother was burned to death without a clear reason. Could these 2 incidents be linked? 4th master, you're being too sensitive. According to my knowledge, the death of the 2 Su clan direct descendants seemed to be related to the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan. Second master had no relationship with that Su Nan in the slightest. A Duan clan elder shook his head as he spoke slowly. What he said received the agreement of most of the people present. Whether they're related or not, my Duan clan will surely get to the bottom of this matter and give justice to second brother. Duan Ruhuo's voice had a breathtaking fury mixed within. Patriarch, there's still another matter. I heard from my grandson that this morning, at the side of the Paladin Academy's martial arts practice ground, Duan Rufeng's son, Duan Lingtian, used his cultivation at the Origin Core stage to defeat Shu Qing, the formed #1 genius of Paladin Academy. An aged Duan clan elder suddenly spoke. His grandson was a Paladin Academy student as well. What? Origin Core stage? Second elder, you aren't joking, right? Duan Rufeng's son has stepped into the Origin Core stage. Yeah, second elder. According to my knowledge, Duan Lingtian is only 18 this year, right? He already has a monstrous endowment by being able to cultivate to the 9th level of the core formation stage, and he seems to have surpassed Duan Rufeng when he was the same age, but the Origin Core stage, impossible. Across the history of Out Crimson Sky Kingdom, there seems to never have been an appearance of a 18-year-old Origin Core martial artist. Even within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, an 18-year-old Origin Core martial artist is considered to be an absolute monstrous genius in the martial Dao, an existence that all the huge sects would compete for. I feel it's impossible, The group of Duan clan elders didn't dare believe it and they shook their heads. Silence. Right at this moment, Patriarch Duan Ruhuo spoke and suppressed the clamorous discussion within the audience hall. I can bear witness on this matter, and what second elder said is true. At dawn today, Duan Rufeng's son, Duan Lingtian, indeed defeated Shu Qing, and at that time, he didn't use a spirit weapon and was able to exert the strength of 16 ancient mammoths. The moment Duan Ruhuo spoke, the entire audience hall became deathly silent, and the people present didn't doubt it any longer. Not using a spirit weapon and able to exert the strength of 16 ancient mammoths. As long as it was a normal martial artist, the first thought in their mind would be that it was an origin core martial artist attacking while holding back. After all, a 9th level core formation martial artist that didn't utilize a spirit weapon would at most be able to exert the strength of 12 ancient mammoths. The strength of 16 ancient mammoths was something that only an origin core martial artist was capable of exerting. Patriarch, the old man that sat beneath Duan Ruhuo and had never spoken since the beginning, abruptly spoke. This old man had a head full of snow white, long hair and a pair of white brows that were curled upwards. Presently, his murky eyes seemed to have cleared away the mist before then and were emitting dazzling rays of light. Accompanied by the old man speaking, everyone within the audience hall, including Patriarch Duan Ruhuo, gazed respectfully at the old man. The old man was precisely the Duan clan's grand elder, and not only that, the old man had another identity. The previous Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Zhen. Since that Duan Lingtian has such natural talent, we must be sure to use any means necessary to make him return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestors. He has even more potential than Duan Rufeng all those years ago, and the Crimson Sky Kingdom will surely not be able to hold him in the future. As Duan Zhen slowly spoke, a flame flashed within his eyes. If he's able to be looked upon favorably by the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's top sects, with the generosity of those sects and for the sake of Duan Lingtian, it wouldn't be impossible for them to bestow a Void Advancement Pill. Void Advancement Pill. The entire audience hall was deathly silent the moment Duan Zhen finished speaking, and all that remained was the sounds of heavy breathing. Void Advancement Pill. All of them naturally knew what medicinal pill it was. A Void Advancement Pill, Grade 5 medicinal pill, and could only be refined by a Grade 5 alchemist. Once a half-step Void stage powerhouse consumes it, there is a 50% chance that the martial artist will break through to the Void prying stage within 3 days. There was a 30% chance that the martial artist would break through to the Void prying stage within 1 month. There was a 20% chance that the martial artist would break through to the Void prying stage within 1 year. 189 Chapter 190. Enemies are bound to meet. Even within the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, a Grade 5 alchemist was in existence that was rare like phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Besides the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family, formidable powers that were capable of requesting the assistance of a Grade 5 alchemist to refine a Grade 5 medicinal pill were only those top sects that stood at the peak of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. If it were to be said that within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, beneath the Imperial family, the various large clans were dominant, then within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, beneath the Imperial family, the various large sects were dominant. I heard that 30 years ago, the Celestial Element Kingdom's Yuan clan produced a peerless genius who stepped into the origin core stage at the mere age of 19. Later on, he entered the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Snow Moon sect and acknowledged the Snow Moon sect's Grand Elder as his master. Because of this, the Yuan clan obtained a Void Advancement Pill and thus attained a Void prying stage powerhouse. After being reminded by the Grand Elder, another Duan clan elder couldn't help but sigh. I've heard of this as well. Another Duan clan elder nodded, and his eyes emitted a fiery gaze. Void stage powerhouse. It played a decisive role to the Duan clan. Within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, there were at least nearly 100 existences at the half-step Void stage. However, within the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, there were only 3 true Void stage powerhouses. It was too difficult to step into the Void prying stage. Without a certain level of natural talent, even an existence at the half-step Void stage would find it impossible to break through to the Void prying stage within his lifetime. Within the history of the Duan clan, there'd at least been more than 100 people who'd stepped into the half-step Void stage. However, there had never once been a single Void prying stage powerhouse. That year, nearly everyone within the Duan clan thought that Duan Rufeng would surely be able to break the Duan clan's history and become a Void prying stage powerhouse. At that time, Duan Rufeng could be considered as the most talented disciple within the Duan clan's history, but unfortunately, Duan Rufeng vanished in the end and has not been heard of until today. As far as the Duan clan members were concerned, he'd surely been struck with disaster. Whereas now, the son of Duan Rufeng, Duan Lingtian, suddenly appeared with shocking feats, and stepped into the origin core stage at the mere age of 18. Such natural talent aroused the ardor of the Duan clan's higher-ups for a moment. That year, they'd been looking forward to Duan Rufeng becoming a void-prying stage powerhouse and leading the Duan clan to move up a step in the world. Now, with the lesson they learned from Duan Rufeng, they anticipated Duan Lingtian becoming a void-prying stage powerhouse, and they weren't willing to wait. They only hoped that Duan Lingtian could enter a top sect within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and provide the Duan clan with an opportunity to obtain a void advancement pill. At that time, they'd allow a half-step void stage powerhouse within the clan to consume it and directly break through to the void-prying stage. In this way, not only would it not repeat the same road to possible disappointment like Duan Rufeng, it would also allow the Duan clan to obtain a void-prying stage powerhouse within a short amount of time. Patriarch, I agree with what the Grand Elder said. No matter the cost, we must make Duan Lingtian return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestors before allowing him to enter a top sect within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and help obtain a void advancement pill for our Duan clan. I agree with the Grand Elder as well. I agree. The moment they thought of how a void-prying stage powerhouse might appear within the Duan clan because of this, all the elders present within the audience hall were incomparably excited. Duan Ruhong slightly frowned, as he felt that this was a slight aversion towards this decision. Since when did their Duan clan stoop down to the point that they needed to make use of a child? Grand Elder, Patriarch Duan Ruhuo looked at Duan Zhen, and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. It isn't that our Duan clan hasn't thought of getting Duan Lingtian to return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestor. He's been unwilling all along. In my opinion, that child's inherited the temper of third brother and would absolutely not change his mind lightly. As I've said, we can pay any price for this, as long as it's something the Duan clan can accomplish. Duan Zhen's eyes were like a dazzling array of stars as he slowly spoke. Duan Ruhu secretly exhaled a breath of cold air when he heard this, as he could perceive the weight of what the Grand Elder had said. And just at this moment, the servant girl that had just finished pouring tea for all the Duan clan higher-ups within the audience hall left and walked into a vast courtyard. Within the courtyard, the fat woman's small eyes narrowed when she finished hearing what the servant girl said, and a cold light flashed within her eyes. My husband has only just died and the Duan clan wants the murderer of my son to return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestors. And they're willing to pay any price just so he returns. The fat woman's fat trembled violently, as she was enraged to the utmost limit. I can't stay in this Duan clan anymore. That useless trash, Duan Rulei, is dead and can't take revenge for my son any longer. My clan, I must return to my clan. I'll take revenge for my son by myself. The fat woman packed up her things that same night and left the imperial city in a hurry at dawn next day. Paladin Academy. At dawn, Duan Lingtian had only just entered the academy gate when he noticed that all the students he encountered on his way more or less stared at him with unusual gazes. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Looks like it'll be difficult for him to have peace for a period of time because of that uproar from yesterday. Luckily, after a period of time, he would be temporarily leaving Paladin Academy to head to the Northwest Borders battlefield. When he was walking past the martial arts practice grounds, Duan Lingtian brows knitted, as he'd noticed that 3 female students were arguing with each other nearby. More precisely speaking, it was 2 female students joining forces to bully another female student. Duan Lingtian clearly saw the face of the female student that was isolated and helpless, and although she couldn't be considered to be a beauty, but her appearance was quite refined. Originally, he didn't plan to interfere in this matter. I heard that you've made Duan Lingtian your idol, right? Among the 2 female students who had their backs towards Duan Lingtian, one of them had a black whip in her hand and used a condescending tone as she asked the refined female student. Tong Li. When Duan Lingtian recognized the voice's owner, his eyes went cold. Everyone says that enemies are bound to meet, and today he could be considered to have completely experienced the meaning of this saying. Duan Lingtian stopped his steps and narrowed his eyes as he paid attention to the development of the matter. What about me making Duan Lingtian my idol? I admire him and like him. What about it? Am I forcing you to do the same? The refined female student said, with a flushed face. I can't be bothered if you admire another or like another, but that Duan Lingtian is my absolutely irreconcilable enemy, and whoever who makes him their idol is opposing me, Tong Li. Tong Li's voice was incomparably cold and indifferent, as if she was suppressing the extreme rage within her heart. Little by H, do you know Miss Li's identity? Miss Li is the cousin of the 5th prince, and she isn't someone a commoner like you can offend. Quickly kneel and kowtow in apology while shouting, Duan Lingtian's a bastard, 100 times, and maybe Miss Li will show mercy and let you off. The female student beside Tong Li had one hand against her waist and she extended the other hand to point at the refined female student's nose. She used Tong Li's status to bully the refined female student. You. The refined female student was enraged to the point that her breath became hurried. What? I'll give you the time of 3 breaths. If you still don't kneel and shout, Duan Lingtian's a bastard, I'll whip your face into pieces. Tong Li waved the black whip in her hand as if it would swing out at any moment. The refined female student's face was pale, and her body lightly trembled, but she still gritted her teeth and wasn't willing to submit. Duan Lingtian's face sank as he walked over in large strides. In the end, he still couldn't stand by and watch any longer. Even though he didn't know that female student, she was, after all, being bullied by Tong Li because of him. Thus, since he'd noticed this matter, then he couldn't help but interfere. Accompanied by Duan Lingtian's approach, the refined female student's eyes shone and her face revealed an idolizing expression. 3 breaths have passed. Looks like you're really thick-headed. Tong Li didn't notice the expression of the refined female student, and her gaze went cold as she waved the black whip in her hand. As if transforming into a black venomous snake, the whip moved to bite the refined female student. Because of noticing Duan Lingtian, the refined female student was slightly absent-minded and was completely not in time to react to Tong Li's whip. Instantly, her face went pale and terror rooted her to the ground, and she subconsciously closed her eyes. In next to no time, she felt a wave of fierce wind scrape past her face. She originally thought that pain would follow it, but unexpectedly, after hearing a bang, nothing came next. She opened her eyes. Only now did she notice that a violet-clothed youth had appeared before her eyes. The violet-clothed youth had his back to her and used his hand to grab hold of the whip that was swung towards her. For a moment, her face blushed and she could only feel her heartbeat getting faster. Tong Li's face went grim when she noticed that someone dared to stop her from teaching a lesson to another, and she was about to snap. However, she hadn't even opened her mouth before she became completely stunned, because the person that stopped her now wasn't anyone else but precisely that Duan Lingtian that she hated to the bones. What? Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold as he exerted force with his hand to seize the black whip from Tong Li's hand. Miss Tong, I noticed that you seem to be uncomfortable if you don't put on airs for a day, but I wonder, how did this fellow student here offend you? Tong Li's face was ghastly pale as she shouted coldly, what's it got to do with you? What's it got to do with me? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as his gaze moved from Tong Li to the female student beside Tong Li. Earlier, you asked this fellow student here to kneel and say what 100 times. Sorry, I didn't hear it clearly just now. The female student's face went deathly pale, as she only dared act that way earlier because Tong Li was beside her to support her. But now, how would she dare continue saying that? Are you kidding? This Duan Lingtian hit Tong Li until her head turned into a pig's head, right in front of her the other day. She didn't doubt in the slightest that if she were to dare repeat what she said earlier, Duan Lingtian would surely beat her head into a pig's head. I didn't say anything. The female student had a deathly pale expression, her body was lightly trembling, and she lowered her head, not daring to look Duan Lingtian in the eye. Weren't you rather domineering earlier? Duan Lingtian sneered. His eyes focused and he shouted coldly, kneel down. Duan Lingtian didn't look at this female student who relied on Tong Li's status to bully others as a woman. Didn't you ask another to kneel down at every turn? Now I'll make you kneel down. The female student's body trembled when she heard what Duan Lingtian said, and when she felt the faintly discernible killing intent on Duan Lingtian's body, she gritted her teeth and eventually knelt down. 190 Chapter 191, Tong Li's a by H. Not shouting. Duan Lingtian's voice was cold and indifferent as if it came from the depths of hell. A terrifying killing intent swept out of his body and enveloped that female student. Instantly, the female student felt as if she was within a horrifying battlefield and dread arose from the bottom of her heart before she hurriedly said, I'll shout, I'll shout. You dare. Tong Li's face went gloomy, as she'd never expected this bootlicker to actually dare shout it, and she raised her hand before swinging a slap at the female student. Whoosh! Just at this moment, the black whip within Duan Lingtian's hand swung out and directly descended onto Tong Li's arm. Slap! Accompanied by Tong Li's shrill cry, she retracted her arm, which now had a pitch-black bruise on it. You! Tong Li stared angrily at Duan Lingtian, but even though she had a belly full of harsh words to say in her heart, she just didn't dare say it. With the 2 previous lessons, she became clear of Duan Lingtian's temper and knew that if she were to dare say anything harsh, this Duan Lingtian would surely raise his hand at her. For the sake of avoiding the pain of the flesh and body, Tong Li chose to endure. She'd slowly seek revenge for all this from Duan Lingtian in the future. Tong Li's a BH. Tong Li's a BH. Meanwhile, the female student that was kneeling on the ground opened her mouth and started shouting over and over again. After hearing the female student shout the same thing repeatedly 20 or 30 times, he was bored to the point that he started yawning. He looked at the refined female student beside him and lightly smiled. "What's your name?" The refined female student's face blushed like an apple as she lowered her head and said, in a low voice, "I'm Tang Guo." "Tang Guo, this name rather suits you. I'm going to class, so help me look after her. If she doesn't finish shouting 100 times like I instructed, or if this Tong Li dares to try any tricks, you can come to the grade 1 star mastermind department classroom to look for me." Duan Lingtian passed the black whip in his hand to Tang Guo and lightly smiled to her once more before leaving. 1. Tang Guo was slightly excited in her heart as she watched Duan Lingtian's figure disappear in the distance. Tong Li's a BH. Tong Li's a BH. The voice that entered her ears caused Tong Li's face to be extremely unsightly as she coldly shouted, "He's already gone, what are you still shouting for?" Instantly, the voice of the female student that was kneeling on the ground stopped abruptly and she fearfully glanced at Tong Li. "Miss Li, I didn't mean to earlier, truly, that Duan Lingtian is too terrifying, What you mean is that he's terrifying and I'm not." Tong Li's face sank as she interrupted the female student, then a fierce light flickered within her eyes. The female student who was kneeling on the ground didn't even have the time to explain herself when she heard Tang Guo say, with a flushed face, "You've only shouted 41 times, there's still another 59 times, hurry up." The body of the female student that was kneeling on the floor trembled. Only now did she realize that although Duan Lingtian was gone, he had still left behind a representative. And as she recalled the threats Duan Lingtian made earlier, she exhaled a deep breath of cold air before continuing to shout. "Tong Li's a BH. Tong Li's a BH. Tong Li's face went grim as she stared angrily at Tang Guo. "Little bitch, do you not want to live anymore?" Tang Guo gritted her teeth and her timid gaze slowly became firm. "If you have an objection, you can go look for Duan Lingtian. He asked me to keep watch here, and since I've promised him, then I'll surely see to it properly." You. Tong Li extended her hand to point at Tang Guo's nose. She was angered to the point that her body started trembling, and she wished for nothing more than to strangle this woman to death, but when she recalled what Duan Lingtian said earlier, she still endured it in the end. "Humph." Tong Li snorted coldly before turning to leave, and as she left, she didn't forget to threaten Tang Guo. "You're Tang Guo, right? I'll remember you." Tang Guo gritted her teeth. When she recalled the words that the youth left behind earlier, her wavering gaze became firm once again. As far as she was concerned, since Duan Lingtian was so confident in her, she couldn't let Duan Lingtian be disappointed. What happened in the morning was only a small incident to Duan Lingtian, and Tang Guo was only a passing guest within his life. After a regular day passed, he, Xiao Xuan, and Xiao Yu walked out of Paladin Academy together at dusk. Right at this moment, a carriage driver opened the curtain of a carriage that was stopped outside of Paladin Academy, and a person walked out of it. Duan Lingtian frowned when he recognized the person. It was precisely the Duan clan's fourth master, Duan Ruhong. Duan Lingtian didn't have any good impression of Duan Ruhong. He still remembered that when Duan Lingxing desired to kill him in Fresh Breeze Town's Li clan that day, this Duan Ruhong only snapped at Duan Lingxing once and took no further action. Duan Ruhong seemed to notice Duan Lingtian's hostile gaze and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth before he said, "Can you come with me for a short chat?" "You two head home first," Duan Lingtian said to Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan, before getting into the carriage. Within the carriage, Duan Lingtian and Duan Ruhong sat facing each other as Duan Lingtian indifferently said, be frank if you have something to say. If you're thinking of persuading me to return to the clan again, then please keep your opinion to yourself. I, Duan Lingtian, will not lightly change my decision on something I've already decided on. When he first saw Duan Ruhong earlier, he'd already guessed Duan Ruhong's objective. He was surely here because Duan Lingtian had revealed a strength that others mistook for being at the origin core stage yesterday morning. The Duan clan wanted to ask him to return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestors again. After all, an 18-year-old origin core martial artist was a unique existence even in the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom. Let me finish before you decide. Duan Ruhong laughed bitterly. Speak. Duan Lingtian was slightly impatient as he spoke. Duan Ruhong took a deep breath as he slowly said, "It's like this, the Grand Elder, who is also the previous patriarch of our Duan clan, has spoken that as long as you're willing to return to the clan, acknowledge your ancestors, and admit yourself to be a Duan clan disciple, then our Duan clan will satisfy any conditions of yours as long as they're within the Duan clan's ability." Duan Lingtian frowned. So good, able to agree to any of his conditions. However, Duan Lingtian understood that there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Since the Duan clan is willing to give so much, I presume the Duan clan wants something, right? I wonder what does the Duan clan want from me? Duan Ruhong glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. He suddenly felt that the youth before him was much more astute than his third brother, Duan Rufeng. The Duan clan does indeed have a request, and the objective is a Void Advancement Pill. Void Advancement Pill. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, as he, who had merged memories with Rebirth Martial Emperor, naturally knew what a Void Advancement Pill was. Void Advancement Pill, a Grade 5 medicinal pill, able to assist a half-step Void Stage martial artist bring about the 6-9 Lightning Tribulation within a short amount of time. After the martial artist finishes withstanding the tribulation, he will step into the Void Prying stage. Ordinarily speaking, a Void Advancement Pill was something only consumed by those martial artists whose natural talent made it difficult for them to break through to the Void Prying stage. This is because once one consumes a Void Advancement Pill and forcefully brings about the 6-9 Lightning Tribulation, it will leave behind an extremely serious side effect. A martial artist that forcefully broke through to the Void Prying stage with a Void Advancement Pill would be able to at most cultivate to the 9th level of the Void Prying stage within their lifetime, and they would be unable to make any further breakthrough. It can be said that once one consumes a Void Advancement Pill, it could be considered as destroying their own future. At the very least, Duan Lingtian would rather die than consume a Void Advancement Pill. However, to the group of half-step Void Stage martial artists within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, if they didn't have a Void Advancement Pill, then it would be impossible for 90% or more of them to break through to the Void Prying stage. So the Void Advancement Pill was their only choice, and they definitely paid no regard to the side effects the Void Advancement Pill brought about. Even if it's only the 9th level of the Void Prying stage, it's still sufficient to act without a care within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Even that Void Prying stage powerhouse within the Imperial family probably hasn't reached the 9th level of the Void Prying stage, Duan Lingtian thought inwardly. Duan Ruhong was shocked in his heart when he noticed Duan Lingtian pondering. Could it be that this kid knows what a Void Advancement Pill is? After all, even though the Void Advancement Pill couldn't be considered to be a secret, it wasn't something that just anyone would know of. Void Advancement Pill, the Duan clan really planned well. Duan Lingtian sneered. However, why does the Duan clan think I can bring a Void Advancement Pill to them? Duan Ruhong's heart trembled. This kid really knew of the Void Advancement Pill. According to the Grand Elder's intention, it's to ask you to enter one of the top sects within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. With your natural talent, you'd surely be regarded highly by the higher-ups of those top sects. At that time, it wouldn't be difficult for you to get a Void Advancement Pill for the Duan clan. Enter a top sect within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused and a smile of ridicule appeared on the corners of his mouth. Looks like the Duan clan had already planned everything. No wonder they would use such generous terms to rope him in. 1 TL note. Her name Tang Guo in Chinese text is similarly pronounced as Candied Sweets. Hi everyone, it's Crazy here. I've seen many people complaining about the ads. I just want to say that regular releases are still being released as normal, but these chapters with ads are bonus chapters that were added on. So no one is forced to watch the ads. If you feel it to be annoying, follow the regular release which is 2 chapters behind the advanced ad chapters. Conversely, if you want to support STL teams while gaining access to chapters that aren't supposed to be released yet, then please do watch the ads as you read every day. 191 Chapter 192, Acknowledging Ancestors and Returning to the Clan. How about it? What's your decision? Duan Ruhong looked at Duan Lingtian with a face full of anticipation. If it was before, he wouldn't have imagined that there would be a day he would speak humbly before this nephew of his. However, his nephew now had the qualifications to receive such treatment. After all, not just anyone was capable of possessing a cultivation at the origin core stage at the age of 18. Although he felt like the Duan clan using Duan Lingtian was inappropriate, when he thought about it, if a void-prying stage powerhouse could appear within the Duan clan because of this, then he would undoubtedly be able to witness the moment the Duan clan walked towards a glorious future. As a disciple of the Duan clan, he anticipated the appearance of that moment. The Duan clan will really agree to any terms of mine. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he focused his gaze on Duan Ruhong and asked once more in confirmation. As long as it's within the Duan clan's ability, the clan will agree to anything. Duan Ruhong's face was serious as he spoke. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth held a smile as he abruptly asked, even if I want you to die. Duan Ruhong jolted, but he still nodded in all seriousness. If my death can be exchanged for your return to the Duan clan, then the clan doesn't need to do it, I'll take my own life. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at Duan Hurong. As the saying goes, the eye is the window to the soul. One is able to lie with their mouths, but their eyes would never lie. Presently, Duan Lingtian couldn't see a shred of falseness in Duan Ruhong's eyes, and this would also mean that what Duan Ruhong said came from his heart. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh. The people of this world had really been completely brainwashed. I'm kidding, although I don't really approve of you, it hasn't come to the point of wanting your life. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled, as there wasn't a deep enmity between him and Duan Ruhong. Duan Ruhong heaved a sigh of relief, as he really thought that Duan Lingtian wanted his life. However, if Duan Lingtian really wanted his life, then for the sake of the Duan clan's future, he would absolutely not live a moment longer. Then do you agree now? Duan Ruhong asked once more, as when he noticed Duan Lingtian's attitude, he suddenly felt that there might be a chance. Duan Lingtian's gaze constricted, and as he finished speaking, he muttered to himself, as long as the Duan clan can keep its promise, then what harm is there if I return to the clan and acknowledge my ancestors? In this way, I can be considered to have fulfilled a desire of my mother. The Duan clan was undoubtedly a clan that placed its benefit before all, and because there was value in using him, the Duan clan was able to pay any price for him. As far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, since it was like this, why not use the Duan clan properly? Presently, no matter in which aspect, he was still in the startup stages, and if he really obtained the assistance of the Duan clan, then many difficulties could be easily solved. Moreover, in this way, he could still curry favor with his mother. So why not? As for the void advancement pill the Duan clan wanted, that was something for the future. And he didn't need to think about it now. Duan Ruhong had a face full of delight when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. Then when are you and your mother prepared to come to the Duan clan? I can get the patriarch to prepare a large courtyard for you, and it'll surely be more comfortable than you staying outside. It isn't necessary, we're living well outside. Even if I really return to the clan, acknowledge my ancestors, and admit myself to be a member of the Duan clan, I will still not return to stay at the Duan clan estate. Let me make this point clear to you first. Duan Lingtian shook his head, and as he finished speaking, his face became serious. Duan Ruhong lightly smiled. This naturally isn't a problem. Not all of the Duan clan direct descendants stayed within the Duan clan estate, and there were many who stayed within their own courtyard houses outside, just like Duan Ruhong himself, who had a courtyard house outside. Duan Lingtian pondered for a moment before giving Duan Ruhong an answer. As for when me and my mother return to the Duan clan, make it the day after tomorrow. As it happens, I don't have classes tomorrow and the day after. Okay, I'll send someone to get you at that time. Duan Ruhong's face revealed a smile. There's no need, we can get there ourselves. At that time, just don't let people shut us out. Duan Lingtian refused Duan Ruhong's good intention before standing up and walking off the carriage. This hurried disposition of his is exactly like third brother all those years ago. Looks like he still hasn't forgotten about the matter that happened 2 years ago and still treats me so hostilely now. However, Since he's agreed to return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestors, then my assignment this time can be considered to have been smoothly completed, Duan Ruhong muttered to himself before shaking his head with a smile. After returning home, Duan Lingtian told his mother about the matter of returning to the Duan clan and acknowledging his ancestors. Tian, why'd you suddenly change your mind? Although Li Ru was taken by surprise and felt pleasantly surprised, she still had questions within her heart. She was understood the disposition of her son, and if he were to decide on a matter, then he wouldn't easily change his decision. I've thought about it lately and came around. The Duan clan's descendants' blood flows within me after all, and I can't really not return to the clan and acknowledge my ancestors for my entire lifetime. Duan Lingtian spouted lies, as he naturally wouldn't tell the truth. Otherwise, his mother would surely start overthinking things. Mother knows that the matter is certainly not so simple, however, you being willing to return to the clan and acknowledge your ancestors can be considered as fulfilling a desire of mother's. Regarding the other matters, if you're unwilling to speak about it, then mother won't force you. Li Ru glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as if she could see through his heart. Duan Lingtian laughed embarrassedly. Only now did he recall that it wasn't so easy to bluff to his mother. On the second day, Duan Lingtian, who didn't have to head to Paladin Academy, stayed at home and accompanied the two girls to pass the day in an intimate fashion. On the third day, Duan Lingtian got Shang Quan to prepare a carriage at dawn, then he headed to the Duan clan's estate with his mother. Duan Lingtian didn't bring the two girls along. As to him, going to the Duan clan to acknowledge his ancestors today was only a mere formality, and he would return in next to no time. The Duan clan estate covered a vast area, like a city within the city. On the way, Mom, you seem nervous. Duan Lingtian looked at Li Ru as he smiled. You bad kid, actually daring to make fun of your mother. Mother is just feeling emotional. You're already so old now, which means that I left the Duan clan for so many years. Li Ru's gaze seemed to drift off as if she'd once again returned to those happy days when her husband hadn't vanished yet. Before long, under the driving of Shang Quan, the carriage stopped before the Duan clan estate's main gate. The display is rather grand. Duan Lingtian could vaguely see past the windows that a red carpet had been rolled out at the Duan clan estate's main gate, and servant girls and servants filled the sides of the red carpet. Li Ru was slightly stunned when she saw this scene, and she suddenly realized that her son choosing to return to the clan and acknowledge his ancestors this time would probably really not be so simple. Young master, madam, we've arrived. Shang Quan's respectful voice entered the carriage. Duan Lingtian got off the carriage first and then respectfully supported his mother down before holding his mother's arm and walking onto the red carpet outside the Duan clan estate's main gate. Greetings, young master, greetings, madam. Meanwhile, the servant girls and servants on either side of the red carpet respectfully bowed to Duan Lingtian and his mother. Duan Lingtian raised his head. He could see that at the Duan clan estate's main gate, a group of people that were originally standing there moved over to greet him. Among these people, a dignified middle-aged man and an awe-inspiring old man took the lead, and that fourth uncle of his, Duan Ruhong, followed behind as well. Duan Lingtian held on to his mother as he went to greet them. Patriarch, big brother. Li Ru looked at the awe-inspiring old man and respectfully bowed before looking at the dignified middle-aged man at the side and lightly smiling in greeting. Ru Feng's wife, I'm not the Duan clan's patriarch anymore. Ru Huo is the patriarch. As for me, I'm now the Duan clan's grand elder. The awe-inspiring old man lightly smiled, and his tone towards Li Ru was extremely courteous. He's the previous Duan clan patriarch, Duan Zhen. Duan Lingtian looked at the awe-inspiring old man as he thought inwardly and guessed the old man's identity. Li Ru shook her head and smiled. I've left for nearly 20 years now. I never imagined that patriarch would already have resigned from the leading post and big brother had become the patriarch. Tian, aren't you going to greet them? Li Ru's beautiful brows frowned as she talked to Duan Lingtian. Greetings, patriarch, greetings, grand elder. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled to Duan Ru Huo and Duan Zhen. As expected of Ru Feng's son, his appearance is extremely similar to Ru Feng's. Good, very good. Duan Zhen looked at Duan Lingtian as if he was looking at a treasure, and his eyes shone. Yes, in the blink of an eye, the infant from all those years ago has grown so much. Duan Ru Huo nodded as well and smiled lightly to Duan Lingtian. Subsequently, the group of Duan clan elders came and greeted Duan Lingtian and his mother. These Duan clan elders now all had smiles on their faces when they met Duan Lingtian and his mother, and they didn't dare neglect them in the slightest. Duan Lingtian sneered in his heart when he saw this scene. They're really snobbish. That year, his mother brought him, who was still an infant, and left the Duan clan all alone, and not one person stopped her, leaving a baby and a widow to wander outside. Now, when they knew that Duan Lingtian was capable of obtaining a void advancement pill for the Duan clan, all of them were like flies as they came to get close to him. Duan Lingtian only felt a wave of disgust within his heart. Before long, Duan Lingtian finished acknowledging his ancestors within the Duan clan's ancestral shrine under the direction of Patriarch Duan Ruhuo and once again returned to the Duan clan. After everything was completed, Duan Ruhuo said to Duan Lingtian, "Little Tian, if you have any needs in the future, feel free to tell your uncle." "Thank you, Patriarch," Duan Lingtian hurriedly nodded. "Besides that, you don't have to worry about the matter with the Su clan, as the clan will help you deal with it," Duan Ruhuo continued to say to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's gaze slightly moved. This patriarch was an intelligent man, and he knew that his mother was present, so he didn't speak in detail about the conflict between him and the Su clan. However, even then, doubt still arose within Li Ru's heart. "Tian, what happened between you and the Su clan?" Li Ru asked curiously after returning to the carriage. "Mom, it's nothing. It's just that a Su clan direct descendant provoked me with the academy and was injured by me," Duan Lingtian casually said. Li Ru nodded as if this wasn't any big deal, but it was a mystery as to what Li Ru would think if she knew that Duan Lingtian had crippled a person's dantian and destroyed his entire life. 192 Chapter 193, Undercurrents Brewing in Secret. "Hey, brothers, have you all heard? That Duan Lingtian, whose name was spread and gave rise to much discussion a while ago, has broken through to the origin core stage. I've known of this news since a few days ago. I have a distant cousin who's at Paladin Academy. Forgive my disrespect, brother, you're actually the cousin of a Paladin Academy student. Don't mention it. Then brother, do you know that just this morning, that Duan Lingtian returned to the Duan clan and acknowledged his ancestors? There's such a thing, hee. A distant cousin of mine is a Duan clan servant girl. Allegedly, the display was rather grand. Didn't that Duan Lingtian refuse to return to the Duan clan before? That's all history, and not worth mentioning." Within a restaurant in the Imperial City's inner city, two young men were chatting and became acquainted with each other. And presently, similar conversations were taking place throughout the Imperial City inner city. Duan Lingtian, the youth who stepped into the origin core stage at the age of 18, and the publicly acknowledged #1 genius within Paladin Academy. Now he had an extra title of a Duan clan direct descendant disciple added on. In the eyes of the people within the Imperial City, it was sufficient to call Duan Lingtian one who was favored by the heavens, and his current status even surpassed Duan Rufeng all those years ago. The Su clan estate. Within a spacious courtyard, an old man raised his hand and the stone table within the courtyard shattered with a crack before crashing onto the ground. "Grandfather, what's happened?" A young man whose complexion was slightly sickly pale walked out from within his room and looked questioningly at the old man. "Tong, why have you come out? Your injuries haven't healed, and you need to rest more." The old man looked at the young man, and a strand of guilt flashed within his eyes. "Grandfather, has something happened?" Su Tong's face sank. Streams of light spiraled within the old man's eyes as he forced out a smile. "Nothing happened, don't overthink things. Grand Elder." However, right at this moment, the Su clan's patriarch, Su Boya, paid him a visit, and Su Boya looked at the old man who was the Su clan's Grand Elder as he walked into the courtyard. Patriarch, Su Nan and Su Tong bowed to Su Boya. Su Boya looked at Su Nan as he slowly said, "Grand Elder, I presume you've heard of the matter of that Duan Lingtian returning to the Duan clan and acknowledging his ancestors, right?" Su Nan's face sank as he nodded. "What?" Su Tong's face went ghastly pale. That Duan Lingtian actually returned to the Duan clan and acknowledged his ancestors. At this instant, he only felt the sky go dark, and only darkness was left before his eyes. In the past 2 days, he'd heard of the news regarding Duan Lingtian's breakthrough to the origin core stage. He was shocked towards Duan Lingtian's peerless natural talent, and his heart was filled with resentment. He wished for nothing more than to hack Duan Lingtian into pieces. However, as far as he was concerned, even if Duan Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Dao was strong, he didn't have any strong background, and thus it wasn't difficult for his grandfather to take revenge for him. But now, the news of Duan Lingtian returning to the Duan clan was undoubtedly like a thunderbolt that dropped out of the clear sky, striking Su Tong until he felt like it was difficult to breathe. An 18-year-old origin core martial artist wasn't anything great because if he was unable to mature, then everything was in vain. But once an 18-year-old origin core martial artist was branded with the brand of the Duan clan, he would undoubtedly receive an extra layer of a life-saving talismans. The Duan clan would absolutely not allow anything to happen to a genius martial artist like Duan Lingtian. Grand Elder, the Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ruhong, has already spoken with me about Su Tong's matter. He's willing to hand over a restaurant under the Duan clan within the outer city tower Su clan. That restaurant will be handed to your family. How about it? Su Boya looked at Su Nan as he slowly spoke. Patriarch, what does that Duan Ruhuo want? He wants us to put down the enmity with that Duan Lingtian. Su Nan's face sank as he spoke in a nearly howling voice. Grand Elder, Su Boya frowned and his voice went slightly colder. He was the patriarch of the clan, but this Grand Elder actually dared to shout and howl before him. Where would he put his face? Patriarch. Su Nan came to his sense and said apologetically, I was just furious for a moment earlier, I hope the patriarch can forgive me. Humph. Su Boya's cold and indifferent gaze swept past Su Nan. Grand Elder, the reason I came here today, besides notifying your family to go take over that restaurant, the other reason is to give you a reminder. In the future, at the very least don't go looking for trouble with that Duan Lingtian, otherwise, if anything were to happen to your family because of this, the clan won't stand forward for you. What? Su Nan's face went gloomy, and Su Tong, who was beside Su Nan, had a face full of rage. What the patriarch said at the end was undoubtedly indicating the Su clan's standpoint, and the meaning was if he and his family were to look for trouble with Duan Lingtian, then the Su clan would isolate them. Patriarch, my family members are still direct descendants, you're isolating us just for the sake of Duan Lingtian. I wonder if this is the intention of the patriarch, or the clan's intentions. Su Nan's face was gloomy, and as he finished speaking, there was a vague questioning tone within his voice. Presumptuous. Su Boya's face went grim. Grand Elder, you actually dare go against your superiors. Right at this moment, a group of people flowed in from outside the courtyard. They were precisely the group of Su clan elders. You all. A bad premonition arose within Su Nan's heart when he saw all these people appear. Grand Elder, you mustn't misunderstand the patriarch, as what the patriarch said earlier is something that we unanimously approved and agreed upon. The corners of the Su clan's second elder's mouth curled into a sneer. Su Nan's face sank, and his gaze swept past all of the Su clan elders present before he said, in a low voice, what that Duan clan paid for the matter with my grandson probably isn't just simply a restaurant, right? Exactly. The restaurant in the outer city is only the Duan clan's compensation to your family. What the Duan clan compensated our Su clan is a yearly place in the recommendation quota into Paladin Academy. In other words, the Duan clan will provide one out of their original 5 places in the recommendation quota to our Su clan. In this way, our Su clan and the Duan clan would similarly have a yearly recommendation quota of 4. The second elder didn't deny it. What generosity of the Duan clan! Su Nan's face sank and turned pale, as he finally understood what happened. Patriarch, fellow elders, if there isn't anything else, then Su Nan won't be entertaining you. Su Nan took a deep breath, and his tone had an unapproachable intent mixed within. He understood that the milk was already spilled, and this matter wasn't something he could alter anymore. Su Boya's brows knit, and he shook his head before leaving with the group of Su clan elders. No, I won't accept this, grandfather, I won't accept this. Su Tong's face was deathly pale. He held his head in his hands, grabbing onto his hair until it seemed like a mass of loose rags, and unceasingly shook his head, as he was unwilling to believe that all this was real. Pooh. Meanwhile, Su Nan's face flushed and a mouthful of blood forcefully came out of his mouth. This was blood he spat from being enraged by the Su clan's higher-ups. Tong, don't worry, even if I have to risk abandoning our family, grandfather will still take revenge for you. You're the one and only descendant of our family, but since your future's been destroyed, then our family doesn't have any future to talk about. Su Nan's eyes flickered with a cold night, and his face was filled with ruthlessness and malice. Within the audience hall of the 5th Prince's estate, the 5th Prince's face slowly went gloomy as he heard the white-browed old man's report. Wasn't that Duan Lingtian rather strong-willed? He returned so easily to the clan that abandoned him so many years ago. Fifth Prince's pupils constricted, as the matter of Duan Lingtian returning to the Duan clan slightly exceeded his expectations. Your Highness, my guess is that upon seeing Duan Lingtian being able to break through to the origin core stage at the age of 18, the Duan clan looked favorably upon Duan Lingtian's future, and thus made heavy promises that tempted Duan Lingtian, the white-browed old man slowly said. Humph, to think that I thought he was an unyielding person in the beginning. The fifth prince's voice was filled with disdain. Cousin, right at this moment, a red figure flashed into the audience hall. The icy cold expression of the fifth prince's face instantly melted and he lightly smiled. Little girl, you are in such a rush. Is there something the matter? The person who entered was precisely Tong Li. Tong Li's face sank. Cousin, I heard that Duan Lingtian returned to the Duan clan, is this true? Yes, I've just heard from Senior Bai as well. The fifth prince nodded. Then, my revenge, does it mean I can't have it anymore? Tong Li's eyes emitted a trace refusal to accept it, and her face was filled with unwillingness. Li, don't worry, even if that Duan Lingtian has the support of the Duan clan, your cousin won't let him off, however, your cousin needs to give the matter further thought. The fifth prince continued, didn't you say the other time that a female student within Paladin Academy bullied you a few days ago? I'll ask Senior Bai to send a few people to you, and you can go deal with her. Tong Li's eyes shone. Thank you, cousin. Within a spacious courtyard house's rear courtyard, Duan Lingtian was comfortably lying down on a deck chair with closed his eyes and was bathing in the sun. Li Fei, who had an angelic face and devilish figure, sat beside him and helped him massage his legs. Little Fei, a little bit higher, right, there. Oh, comfortable. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh, and his face revealed a satisfied smile. Young master, open your mouth. Kaur, who was gentle like water, sat on the other side of Duan Lingtian and placed grapes that had their skins peeled into Duan Lingtian's mouth. Duan Lingtian ate grapes as he enjoyed the massage and felt his entire body easing up. He had really spent these last few days comfortably like a god. Young master, was it fun when you went to the Duan clan to acknowledge your ancestors this morning? Kaur asked, with a tone that had a trace of curiosity mixed within. Duan Lingtian slowly opened his eyes when he heard what she said. He noticed that Li Fei was looking at him as well. What fun would there be? It was nothing more than a formality. Li Fei smiled as she said, Aunt Ru looked rather happy. Of course, Mother had been waiting for this day for God knows how long, this time it can be considered as fulfilling Mother's desire. Duan Lingtian nodded. Besides paving the road for himself, the matter this time had one more reason, and that was his mother. Otherwise, even if the Duan clan's patriarch were to personally request it of him, it was unlikely that Duan Lingtian would be willing to return to the Duan clan. That clan that was icy cold and indifferent like a block of ice, even though Duan Lingtian had already returned to the clan and acknowledged his ancestors now, he didn't have any sense of belonging to the clan, and at most it was just a relationship of mutual advantage. 193 Chapter 194, Tong Li's backer. At dawn the next day, Duan Lingtian walked out of his own house and headed towards the Paladin Academy. 2 days of holidays passed so quickly. Duan Lingtian's eyes slightly narrowed as he slowly walked into Paladin Academy. Meanwhile, he could still notice many gazes that were staring at him, and as he was accustomed to it now, he directly ignored them. When Duan Lingtian just entered the classroom, he noticed the gazes of the group of students within the classroom gather on him. Duan Lingtian, congratulations. Xiao Xuan looked at Duan Lingtian as he congratulated him with a smile. What's are you congratulating me for? Duan Lingtian was dazed and was unable to react to it. What else? It's naturally congratulating you on returning to the Duan clan and once again becoming a member of the Duan clan's direct descendants, Xiao Yu added. He was happy for Duan Lingtian as well. After all, even his heart trembled when he thought of the circumstances Duan Lingtian faced before this. The fifth prince and the Su clan weren't easy to deal with. And now, Duan Lingtian had returned to the Duan clan, and with Duan Lingtian's monstrous natural talent in the martial Dao, he would surely receive double the regard from the Duan clan. As far as he was concerned, even the fifth prince and the Su clan wouldn't dare act rashly now. So it's about this. Duan Lingtian shook his head with a smile, as he didn't feel that it could be considered to be a happy thing. However, he'd more or less perceived Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan's thoughts, and a trace of warmth couldn't be avoided from arising within his heart. These are the friends of Duan Lingtian. An entire morning worth of time passed quickly. At noon, after class ended, Duan Lingtian's group of 3 headed to the cafeteria as usual. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 stopped their steps when they'd just arrived at the cafeteria, and it wasn't for any other reason than a person standing in their path. This was a female student with an ordinary appearance and a rounded figure. But at this moment, what caused Duan Lingtian's group of 3 to be stunned was the resentment that appeared on this female student's face. It was as if someone had hurt her. Fellow student, this is. Xiao Xuan had a bewildered expression. He glanced at Duan Lingtian and Xiao Yu with a strange gaze as he thought in his heart, it can't be some romantic debt that one of these 2 fellows secretly owe, right? No, their views shouldn't be unique to this extent. Duan Lingtian and Xiao Yu's expressions were similar to Xiao Yu's, even their thoughts were identical in nature. Duan Lingtian. Suddenly, the female student spoke with a tone that had a sense of grief and resentment mixed within. Duan Lingtian was stunned. Xiao Xuan and Xiao Yu swept Duan Lingtian with a dubious gaze and expressions that said, "You really have such strong tastes." "I don't know her." Duan Lingtian glared at the 2 of them, as he naturally perceived what these 2 dirty fellows were thinking. "Indeed, you don't know me." The female student took a deep breath and then said, with a face full of grief and resentment, "Then you should at least know Tang Guo, right?" Tang Guo. Duan Lingtian frowned. He felt that this name seemed familiar, but for a moment he couldn't recall it. Kiki, the female student had a mocking expression. "It's only been 2 days and you've forgotten her. To think that she fought against the pressure and persisted in completing the task that you entrusted to her. I really feel like you're not worthy of Tang Guo. She actually lost her life just to help you." When the female student was halfway through her speech, Duan Lingtian had already recalled it. Tang Guo was precisely that female student with a refined face from before. At that time, Tang Guo was bullied by Tong Li, so he helped Tang Guo. After that, he even gave Tong Li a show of force by making that female student beside Tong Li kneel on the ground and shout, "Tong Li is a bi-ch." Later on, he felt bored and left first, and before leaving, he asked Tang Guo to help keep watch on that female student to finish shouting 100 times. Now, when he finished listening to this female student's words that were full of grief and resentment, Duan Lingtian's face went gloomy. "What did you say? Tang Guo is dead?" Duan Lingtian's eyes were filled with bloodlust, and a terrifying killing intent extended out from his body. The female student was frightened to the point that her face went ghastly pale. She gritted her teeth and nodded. "Yes." "What actually happened?" Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. He had an extremely gloomy expression on his face as he suppressed the rage within his heart. "It went like this. Yesterday was a holiday, so Tang Guo and I went out to take a spin around the city, but halfway through our trip, Tong Li brought some people to capture us and brought us to a remote alley. Tang Guo's hands were chopped off by Tong Li first, before her legs were chopped off. After that, Tong Li used water to splash Tang Guo awake after she fainted, then she tortured Tang Guo for half an hour before ending her life." The female student had a deathly pale face, and her eyes were filled with terror. Yesterday, she was really scared stiff and couldn't sleep the entire night. Even after returning to Paladin Academy, she was scared out of her wits. Duan Lingtian's face was gloomy, as he'd never imagined that one decision of his could actually destroy Tang Guo's life. A trace of regret arose within his heart. He shouldn't have let Tang Guo help him, otherwise, Tong Li wouldn't have moved her rage onto Tang Guo. Tong Li. Duan Lingtian's eyes were crimson red, and the killing intent on his body swept out without restraint. Instantly, with Duan Lingtian at the center, Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan couldn't help but retreat. They looked at Duan Lingtian with fearful gazes. As for that female student, she'd long since been terrified to the point of retreating far off into the distance. Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu and Xiao Yu had faces full of worry. Even though they didn't know who Tang Guo was, they could guess that there probably was some sort of relationship between Duan Lingtian and Tang Guo, and now that Tang Guo had been killed by Tong Li. Duan Lingtian's eyes revealed a crimson hue. He seemed to have transformed into a bloodthirsty asura. Meanwhile, many students had surrounded him. "Isn't that Duan Lingtian? He seems enraged. Isn't that female student a friend of Tang Guo's? Looks like Duan Lingtian is furious about the incident regarding Tang Guo." "Who's Tang Guo?" The group of students that surrounded the scene started discussing amongst themselves, and among them was no lack of people who knew the cause of the entire matter. "So in other words, Tang Guo left yesterday and hasn't returned since." 90% chances she been killed by Tong Li for revenge. Some of the students secretly guessed, and strands of coldness arose within their hearts. Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan finally understood the details of the entire matter from the discussion of these spectators, so that's what happened. They finally understood why Duan Lingtian would be so angry. Who knows where Tong Li is now? Duan Lingtian's crimson-red eyes swept past the group of students, and his cold and indifferent voice had a breathtaking coldness mixed within. In this instant, all the students present felt a wave of chilliness on their backs, and their hearts went cold. Duan Lingtian, what happened? Right at this moment, Tian Hu had arrived as well, and he couldn't help but be stunned when he saw Duan Lingtian's current appearance. In next to no time, Tian Hu found out about the matter from Xiao Xuan, and he burst into rage. That Tong Li is virtually a crazy bitch. No, she's absolutely worse than an animal. How that Tang Guo must have suffered before death. Meanwhile, the faces of the surrounding group of students went grim as well, as Xiao Xuan didn't intentionally suppress his voice when he recounted the details the matter to Tian Hu, and thus everyone present heard what happened. Tang Guo was actually alive as she was dismembered to death by that Tong Li. Many of the surrounding female students had pale expression, and some female students who had just eaten and walked out of the cafeteria even started vomiting out what they'd just ate. If I see Tong Li, that crazy bitch, I don't care if she's the cousin of the 5th prince. I'll give her a few slaps and then we can talk. Tian Hu's expression was extremely unsightly, and was filled with righteous indignation. Even though Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan didn't speak, their eyes revealed a trace of coldness. That Tong Li was really too atrocious. Who said he wants to slap me? Right at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice of a girl echoed out from behind the surrounding crowd. The crowd opened up a path, and Tong Li, who wore red clothes, could be vaguely seen walking over shoulder to shoulder with a young man around the age of 25. The young man was wearing green clothes, had an ordinary appearance, and had a sheathed machete hanging on his waist. An aura of slaughter was vaguely emitted from his body, as he obviously was someone who had received special training. Isn't that Shui Lang? Many of the students couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice when they saw the young man. Shui Lang. Tian Hu's face went grim, as he'd never imagined that Tong Li would be together with Shui Lang. Shui Lang, a grade 6 student of Paladin Academy, and a martial artist at the 2nd level of the Origin Core stage. In terms of natural talent, this Shui Lang was only a tiny bit inferior to Su Tong, who had his Dantian crippled by Duan Lingtian. As he thought of Su Tong, Tian Hu's heart calmed, as Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid of Su Tong and directly crippled him, so would he be afraid of this Shui Lang? Tong Li. Duan Lingtian's crimson eyes descended onto Tong Li, and a terrifying killing intent swept out from his body to envelop Tong Li. Tong Li, who held her head high a moment ago, now had an expression that instantly went deathly pale, and her body even started trembling. Humph. Shui Long, who was currently standing beside Tong Li, snorted coldly and stood before Tong Li to help her block out the boundless killing intent. Shui Lang's pupils couldn't help but constrict when he replaced Tong Li and was enveloped by the killing intent. What a terrifying killing intent. You're Duan Lingtian. Shui Lang's gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian, and a trace of coldness appeared on the corners of his mouth. FK off. Duan Lingtian's eyes emitted a cold light when he saw Shui Lang stand out, and he shouted coldly. You asked me to FK off. Shui Lang seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. Duan Lingtian, I know your natural talent in the martial Dao is great, and now you've even returned to the Duan clan, even receiving high regard from the Duan clan, but even then, there's some people you can't afford to offend within the imperial city. As he finished speaking, Shui Lang's face was filled with arrogance and complacence. Is that so? Duan Lingtian's eyes focused as his icy cold gaze descended onto Shui Lang's body. I don't know about other people, but I, Duan Lingtian, don't acknowledge you. Being provoked by Duan Lingtian in public caused Shui Lang's face to go grim. Duan Lingtian. Meanwhile, Tong Li spoke, and her voice contained a trace of icy coldness. Big brother Shui Lang is the Imperial City's Guard Army commander, Lord Shui Lu's only son. Not to mention you, even your Duan clan's patriarch would need to be respectful when they meet big brother Shui Lang's father. Is that so? Duan Lingtian abruptly started laughing. Miss Tong, no wonder you recovered your usual arrogance today, so it turned out that you've found a backer. 194 Chapter 195, once again crippling the Dantian. Although Duan Lingtian was currently laughing, everyone present could feel the infinite rage that Duan Lingtian's laugh contained. Exactly, Big Brother Shui Lang is my backer, how about it? Scared, Tong Li replied in a cold voice. At this moment, she wasn't afraid of Duan Lingtian in the slightest. Shui Lang was someone her cousin Fifth Prince introduced to her yesterday, and the purpose was to provide her with a backer within Paladin Academy so she wouldn't have to fear Duan Lingtian. Moreover, Shui Lang indeed didn't disappoint her, as every time she mentioned Duan Lingtian, he would have a face full of disdain and look down upon Duan Lingtian. This caused her to feel that her backer was extremely strong, and he absolutely wasn't someone Duan Lingtian was capable of shaking. Look like, Miss Tong, you want your memory refreshed this time. Duan Lingtian's crimson-red eyes abruptly turned gloomy. Duan Lingtian, I know you've broken through to the Origin Core stage now, but even if you've broken through to the Origin Core stage, what about it? Big Brother Shui Lang is a second-level Origin Core stage powerhouse. Tong Li grunted as she spoke, and her tone was filled with extreme disdain towards Duan Lingtian. When Shui Lang heard what Tong Li said, his originally arrogant expression became even more arrogant, and his gaze looked down condescendingly at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, I heard from Tong Li that you've hit her before. Indeed, Duan Lingtian's eyes went slightly cold, and the gaze he looked at Shui Lang with didn't have any hint of emotion. Shui Lang felt embarrassed from humiliation when he heard Duan Lingtian's casual reply, and he snapped, kneel down right now and kowtow in apology to Little Li, and maybe out of respect for the Duan clan, I might not pursue the matter any further, or else, even if you're a Duan clan direct descendant, I'll still properly teach you how to conduct yourself. Kowtow in apology, are you sure? Duan Lingtian's voice sank, and instantly the air seemed to be affected by him, it went slightly colder. Kneel down, Shui Lang glared fiercely at Duan Lingtian as he shouted coldly. And at the same time, origin energy slowly came out of Shui Lang's right hand. It flashed as it twined around his hand, it seemed like he would attack Duan Lingtian at any moment. So what if I don't kneel? Duan Lingtian had a mocking expression on his face as he swept Shui Lang with a disdainful gaze. Asking others to kneel down at every turn, does this Shui Lang actually think he is the emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Not to mention it was only Shui Lang, even if it was the emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom in the flesh, it would still be impossible for him to make Duan Lingtian kneel. Not kneeling? Then I'll have to help the Duan clan properly teach you how to conduct yourself. Shui Lang sneered as he took a step forward. I'll give you one more chance, FK off out of my line of sight right now, or else, even if you're the son of that guard army commander or whatever, I still won't show mercy. Duan Lingtian's eyes moved about and were suffused with a gloomy sheen as he stared at Shui Lang. If this Shui Lang was insensible and didn't retreat in the face of difficulties, then don't blame him for being ruthless and merciless. Tang Guo's death caused flames of fury to burn within Duan Lingtian's heart. It had accumulated to the brim and currently showed signs of being unable to be suppressed anymore, they would explode out at any moment. If this Shui Lang really were to really attack him now, then he could only blame himself for being misfortunate. I really want to see how you would show no mercy. The sneer on Shui Lang's face grew wider as he looked at Duan Lingtian with a gaze full of disdain. Big Brother Shui Lang, I want him dead. Tong Li's voice echoed out at the right moment and seemed to transform into the fuse of the battle. Instantly, Shui Lang's spirit was stimulated by this, and his gaze went cold as his body flashed out as if transforming into a rock. He dove down towards where Duan Lingtian was. He wanted to show off in front of Tong Li, so he attacked with full force at the start. Above him, 30 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form and moved with his body as they dashed out with an imposing manner that shot through the sky. Idiot! Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold when faced with Shui Lang, who approached in full fury, and his hand moved along his waist before his violet myrtle flexible sword flashed out. Blood Crescent Inscription. Instantly, a blood light flashed out from the blade of the violet myrtle flexible sword. The blood light condensed into form, eventually transforming into a blood crescent before moving to intercept Shui Lang. The blood crescent's speed was extremely swift, so it instantly arrived before Shui Lang. Shui Lang's face, which was covered with a sneer, instantly went deathly pale. His pupils constricted and he shouted in alarm. No. At this moment, he'd noticed the strength contained within this blood crescent as well, and it was absolutely not something he was capable of withstanding. This was the strength of an inscription that caused him to palpitate and be terrified. It's an offensive inscription. Some students with sharp gazes couldn't help from crying out in alarm. Pooh! A blood crescent flew into the air and pierced into the location of Shui Lang's dantian as if cutting through tofu and directly twisted into his dantian. Ah! Accompanied by a miserable shrill cry that made people palpitate, Shui Lang's forward-charging body trembled in the air before falling straight down. Bang! Dust suffused in the air. Shui Lang, who was approaching in full fury just a moment ago, instantly seemed to become a dead dog. He lied there and heavily gasped for air. He struggled as he withdrew a gold injury pill to consume, and his complexion eased up slightly. However, when he tried to perceive the origin energy within his dantian, he instead noticed that his dantian was absolutely empty. Dantian, destroyed. Shui Lang's pupils constricted, and his expression became agitated. His gaze revealed insanity when he looked at Duan Lingtian and sneered. Duan Lingtian, you actually crippled my dantian, you actually crippled my dantian, you're a dead man, you're a dead man. Then I'll be waiting to see. Duan Lingtian's gaze was calm when faced with Shui Lang's threats, as if everything that just happened wasn't worth mentioning. And at this moment, the crowd of spectating students was deathly silent, and only after a moment were they in an uproar. Oh my god, Duan Lingtian actually crippled Shui Lang's dantian. With his dantian crippled, Shui Lang's entire life can be considered to be utterly destroyed. Forcefully coming forward for the sake of such a woman and destroyed his own life. Was it worth? I never imagined that Duan Lingtian actually possessed such a terrifying inscription. Origin Core martial artists are like paper before that inscription. All the students were dumbstruck. Shui Lang, a grade 6 student in existence at the second level of the Origin Core stage, was crippled by the grade 1 student, Duan Lingtian, just like that. As expected, compared to the shock of these students, Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan, and Tian who instead seemed to have long since guessed the result of this scene. They remembered that Su Tong, who was a third-level Origin Core martial artist and the former number 1 within the Su clan's younger generation at that time, also had his dantian crippled by Duan Lingtian in this way. The inscription Duan Lingtian used at that time was of the same type, and how similar was the scene at that time to the scene before them. They were confident that if the news of that matter regarding Su Tong wasn't suppressed by Paladin Academy and instead spread around the entire Paladin Academy, today, Shui Lang would absolutely not dare be so arrogant before Duan Lingtian. In their opinion, Shui Lang's actions were virtually no different from suicide. No, impossible, how could this be possible? Tong Li looked at Shui Lang, who was suffering to the point that he unceasingly rolled on the ground, and for a moment she was stunned, as she was unwilling to believe that all this was real. Shui Lang was a second-level Origin Core martial artist, the backer her cousin found for her. She didn't care about Shui Lang's fate. What she cared about was that since Shui Lang had fallen, there would be no one to stand in front of her and block Duan Lingtian. Tong Li's face was deathly pale, and she started to retreat backwards. Now she only hoped to leave this place before Duan Lingtian reacted. What, Miss Tong, this Shui Lang only suffered such a fate because he came forward for you, but you're already planning to flee by yourself. Duan Lingtian naturally noticed Tong Li's petty actions. The corners of his mouth curled into a sneer and his voice was filled with a mocking tone. What Duan Lingtian said unsurprisingly gave rise to a stir within the spectating group of students. Shui Lang is too pitiable, his dantian was crippled for the sake of this Tong Li, and not only did this Tong Li not care, she even wanted to leave Shui Lang and flee. Actually, it isn't strange. This Tong Li is capable of being so cruel and merciless to that Tang Guo, and that's sufficient to show that her heart is as poisonous as a scorpion. How could she possibly care about another's fate? I really feel like it was not worth it for Shui Lang. He should have let Duan Lingtian teach a lesson to such a woman. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Tong Li's body froze, as she knew she couldn't avoid it today. Presently, the surrounding discussions caused her expression to become even more unsightly. Ha ha. Hearing the surrounding discussion, Shui Lang struggled to lift his head to glance at Tong Li, and when he noticed Tong Li that was indeed preparing to sneak off, he abruptly started laughing as if he'd gone insane, and he spat out blood as he laughed. After he finished spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, he fainted, obviously being seriously enraged. Duan Lingtian, if you dare touch me, then my cousin will surely tear you into pieces. If you're sensible, then let me leave, and maybe I will plead to my cousin to leave your corpse intact. Tong Li looked at Duan Lingtian, and even though her eyes emitted terror, she didn't forget to threaten Duan Lingtian. Is that so? Duan Lingtian's face revealed a wide grin as he walked out in large strides towards Tong Li. You, don't come any closer. Tong Li retreated 2 steps backwards and was slightly seized with panic. At the same time, on the cafeteria pavilion, a middle-aged man and an old man stood there as they watched this scene from afar. Dean, if we still don't stop it, I'm afraid this Tong Li will meet a bad ending. The person that spoke was precisely the gray-clothed old man, or in other words, Paladin Academy's vice dean, Zan Shang. Zan Shang treated the middle-aged man beside him with the utmost respect and reverence. Within Paladin Academy, the only person who could make Zan Shang treat him so respectfully and even address him as dean would only be the elusive dean of Paladin Academy. Do you think it would be of any use? Based on the enmity that Duan Lingtian just revealed, even if we were to stop him at this moment, he would probably attack her in the next moment. Could it be that we're able to be by Tong Li's side to protect her at all time? The middle-aged man shook his head and had a carefree expression. Moreover, you've heard of the actions of this Tong Li just now. No matter how you put it, that Tang Guo is still a student of my Paladin Academy, but she actually killed her in such a brutal manner. That is virtually an act that would incur the hatred of both humans and the gods. Zan Shang came to a sudden understanding as he watched the situation develop with a calm gaze, and after a while he gulped down a mouthful of saliva as he said in his heart, this Duan Lingtian wouldn't really kill Tong Li, right? 195 Chapter 196, Creating a Stir in the Inner City. Slap, 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 comma. Duan Lingtian walked to arrive before Tong Li with a cold and indifferent expression, and just like the past 2 occasions, he raised his hands and once again beat Tong Li's head into a pig's head. Tong Li's eyes didn't contain a trace of feelings, and it flickered with a gloomy light as she stared at Duan Lingtian. She already hated Duan Lingtian to the depths of her bones. Tong Li originally thought that it would be considered to be over once Duan Lingtian swung over 10 slaps at her, but she quickly realized that all this wasn't over. Miss Li, I really never imagined that your heart was so atrocious. Actually using such brutal methods to kill Tang Guo, I'm really curious, what deep enmity did you have with her? Did she hit you, insult you? Duan Lingtian stared fixedly at Tong Li as he spoke with a tranquil voice. Tong Li glared hatefully at Duan Lingtian, and her swollen mouth lightly moved as she spoke in an unclear manner. Who asked that Bai H to be insensible and embarrass me in public? That Bai H deserved to die. Within her voice, there wasn't the slightest trace of regret. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath as he asked, in a low voice, you tortured her to death just because of this? Tong Li seemed to become aware of Duan Lingtian's suppressed rage, so she hurriedly shut her mouth. She was extremely perturbed in her heart and was extremely afraid that Duan Lingtian would kill her without saying a word. She'd seen Duan Lingtian's methods many times in these past few days and knew that this was a madman that wasn't afraid of anything. Duan Lingtian even seemed to not fear her cousin, the 5th prince, in the slightest. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the place Tong Li's Dantian resided as he muttered to himself, I'm thinking, if your cultivation were to be preserved, it would probably only bring disaster onto more people. Instead, why not? No, Tong Li seemed to have realized something when she heard what Duan Lingtian said, and her face went deathly pale and she retreated backwards. However, how could she possibly flee before Duan Lingtian? Bang! Duan Lingtian slapped out his palm to hit onto Tong Li's Dantian. He urged out his origin energy before smashing it into Tong Li's Dantian, reducing it to pieces. Ah! Tong Li's bitter and shrill cry sounded, and her face, which was originally swollen, emitted a hideous expression. At the same time that her body violently trembled, she didn't forget to stare at Duan Lingtian hatefully. Bang! Finally, under the sharp pain, Tong Li couldn't stand stably on her feet anymore and crashed onto the ground. Her eyes revealed a scarlet-red hue, and emitted bloodthirsty hatred, as in this world where the strong were revered, crippling one's Dantian was more painful than killing them. Humph! Duan Lingtian's icy cold gaze flashed past Tong Li before turning around and walking into the cafeteria. Everywhere Duan Lingtian passed, the crowd of students who came to spectate would make way for him, and their eyes emitted reverence. Even those higher-grade students now felt afraid in their hearts when they saw Duan Lingtian. Shui Lang, who was at the 2nd level of the Origin Core stage, was crippled by Duan Lingtian just like that. This Duan Lingtian was too terrifying. It was incomparably quiet during their meal. Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan, and Tian Hu seemed to be able to understand Duan Lingtian's current mood and didn't bother him. Only when they'd nearly finished eating did Xiao Yu sigh as he persuaded, Duan Lingtian, don't be too hard on yourself, it isn't your fault, you helped Tang Guo out of good intentions. Moreover, even if you didn't interfere, with Tong Li's atrocious nature, Tang Guo wouldn't have a good end anyway. Don't worry, I'm fine. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Although he said that, in the afternoon, Duan Lingtian didn't cultivate and instead lied on the large tree at the side of the martial arts practice ground as he stared blankly into the sky. At the same time, the matter of Duan Lingtian crippling Shui Lang and Tong Li was like a hurricane as it swept through the entire Paladin Academy. Of course, after everyone knew of the details, they didn't feel any pity towards Shui Lang and Tong Li, as they felt they deserved it. Imperial City, within the City Guard Army's campsite. Bang! A loud sound resounded from within the largest camp in the middle on the campsite. It was a robust middle-aged man in light armor who went into a violent rage and smashed the table before him into pieces. Whoosh! In the next moment, under the astounded gaze of the person who brought the report, the robust middle-aged man transformed into an afterimage as he instantly flashed out of the large camp and galloped his horse to leave the campsite. Before long, he entered a spacious courtyard house. Lang. His figure hadn't arrived, but the robust middle-aged man's voice seemed to be like an explosive clap of thunder as it resounded within the courtyard house. Husband, you have to seek justice for Lang. Lang's entire life has been completely destroyed by that little bastard, Duan Lingtian. The robust middle-aged man had only just entered the spacious room when the middle-aged woman within the room spoke with a voice that had sorrow and rage mixed within. Father, Shui Lang, who lied on the bed, had a fierce and savage expression when he saw the middle-aged man. I want Duan Lingtian dead, I want him dead. Lang, don't worry, father assures you that as long as father still has one last breath remaining, Duan Lingtian won't live past tomorrow. The middle-aged man, or in other words, Guard Army Commander Shui Lu, had an extremely gloomy expression as he spoke. Lang, you rest properly. Father will go take revenge for you right now. Shui Lu arrived swiftly and left swiftly, as if he transformed into a gust of wind. And at almost the exact same time, the Duan clan was informed of the matter from the news that was transmitted over from Paladin Academy. Duan Lingtian, who'd just returned to the clan and acknowledged his ancestors not long ago, crippled the only son of City Guard Army Commander Shui Lu. And crippled the cousin of the fifth prince. The Duan clan higher-ups only felt their scalps go numb when they heard of this news. The audience hall was completely deathly silent. Grand Elder, this matter. Patriarch Duan Ruhuo's face was filled with a bitter smile. That nephew of his was really one who stirred up trouble, and compared to his father all those years ago, they were two extremes. Although Duan Rufeng was certainly uninhibited and unrestrained, he wasn't so reckless and unbridled. This Duan Lingtian would virtually stop at nothing. For the sake of the Duan clan's future, we have to protect him no matter what. Grand Elder Duan Zhen's pair of murky eyes flashed with a bright light as he directly spoke. Exactly, that Shui Lu is only a guard army commander, and only at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage, as if our Duan clan would be afraid of him. One of the Duan clan elders agreed. Duan Lingtian is of extraordinary importance to our Duan clan, we must protect him. The other elders reached an agreement as well. That Shui Lang is a small problem, however, that person behind him is slightly difficult to deal with. Duan Ruhuo frowned and had slight apprehension. No matter how difficult to deal with, he's still a half-step void stage martial artist. Could it be that our Duan clan is afraid of him? Duan Zhen's gaze emitted a fierce light, and his voice was filled with coldness. Fifth Prince's estate. Within a spacious room, the fifth prince's face sank as he gazed at the girl on the bed who had fallen asleep on the bed and had still wet tear stains on her face. Subsequently, he turned around and left the room. Your Highness, that Duan Lingtian is really too outrageous, actually crippling Miss Li's Dantian. This is destroying the entire life of Miss Li. The white-browed old man's gaze focused and killing intent vaguely flickered within. Looks like this Duan Lingtian really doesn't hold me in any regard. A trace of a breathtaking coldness flashed within the fifth prince's eyes. As the son of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor, the fifth prince had his own arrogance. Normally, even the patriarchs of the three great clans within the imperial city would be respectful when they met him. But now, being treated high-handedly by a youth caused his fury to almost reach the limit. Your Highness, do you require me to deal with him? The white-browed old man said respectfully. It's of no use if you go now. If I'm not wrong, that Shui Lu should have already gone. The Duan clan members would surely have gone as well, based on the natural talent in the martial Dao that Duan Lingtian's revealed now, the Duan clan surely wouldn't let anything easily happen to Duan Lingtian. A trace of a shine of wisdom flashed within the fifth prince's eyes. The white-browed man came to a suddenly understanding when he heard what the fifth prince said. If the Duan clan members were there, it was indeed impossible for him to kill Duan Lingtian. Humph, let's see if Duan Lingtian is able to escape from the calamity today. If he escapes, Senior Bai can personally make a move on him after a few days. I don't believe I can't kill him. The corners of the fifth prince's mouth curled into a sneer. Subsequently, he sighed. Find someone to head to the Fair Sun County's county city to notify my uncle of the matter. Yes, the white-browed old man replied before leaving. The originally quiet Imperial City inner city was completely stirred when a formidable array of officers and men walked out in an orderly and aligned manner. The orderly troops were a formidable array of more than 1,000 people. Moreover, before these people, a robust, middle-aged general galloped his horse forward. Viciousness filled his eyes. It's the City Guard Army. What happened? The City Guard Army commander Lord Shui Lu is actually personally taking charge. I don't know. Let's go follow them and see. Behind the group of City Guard Army officers, many people followed out of curiosity. In the end, they noticed that these troops stopped before Paladin Academy Gate, completely blocking out the entire Paladin Academy Gate, only leaving one path that was guarded heavily by soldiers. I heard that Commander Shui Lu's only son is a student of Paladin Academy. Could it be that something has happened to him? Being able to make Commander Shui Lu bring over 1,000 City Guard Army officers, it would seem that this matter is quite a big deal. Some of the spectators couldn't help but guess. Paladin Academy, atop the large tree at the side of the martial arts practice ground. Duan Lingtian slightly frowned as he looked towards the direction of the Paladin Academy gate. He vaguely felt like there seemed to be a clamor over there. Shaking his head, Duan Lingtian paid no attention to it and continued to close his eyes and rest his mind. After an unknown amount of time, Duan Lingtian, a voice echoed out and caused Duan Lingtian to be jolted awake. Only now did he notice Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan standing below the tree with gloomy expressions. What's wrong? Duan Lingtian asked uncertainly. Duan Lingtian, City Guard Army Commander Shui Lu brought over 1,000 troops to stand guard before Paladin Academy's gate. He is probably waiting for you to leave. Don't go home today. Xiao Xuan had an incomparably unsightly expression. Shui Lu. Duan Lingtian's brows jerked, as during noon when they had lunch, he had heard from Tianhu about Shui Lang's background. Thus he knew that Shui Lang was the only son of the City Guard Army's commander Shui Lu. Moreover, Shui Lu was even a 9th-level nascent soul martial artist. However, he didn't mind, because if Shui Lu were to really piss him off, then he would directly throw a bone corrosion inscription at him and cause the City Guard Army to find a new commander. He really thinks highly of me, and he has brought so many people. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a sneer. 196. Chapter 197. Start out with a bang, and end with a whimper. Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan were helpless, as no matter how they persuaded, Duan Lingtian persisted on acting willfully and was determined to leave. At dusk, Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan accompanied Duan Lingtian to walk out the gate. Duan Lingtian had only just walked out when he noticed a fierce gaze descend onto his body and lock onto him. You're Duan Lingtian. Far off in the distance, City Guard Army Commander Shui Lu's gaze was like lightning as he stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian, as if he was extremely afraid that Duan Lingtian would vanish from his sights. Among the Paladin Academy students, even a grade 1 student would ordinarily be around the age of 20, and an 18-year-old student was extremely rare. Most importantly, this youth wore violet clothes, exactly similar to the Duan Lingtian of rumor. Thus, Shui Lu easily recognized Duan Lingtian. You two go home first. Duan Lingtian smiled to Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan. However, Xiao Xuan and Xiao Yu didn't leave. As friends, how could they leave at this time? Friends go through difficulties together. Duan Lingtian smiled and didn't persuade the two of them. In any case, as far as he was concerned, everything before him was only just a farce and nothing to be worried about. Exactly, I'm Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian walked out in large strides towards Shui Lu with a carefree expression as if it wasn't a ferocious tiger that was before him but instead only a docile little cat. Shui Lu's focused his fierce gaze to descend onto Duan Lingtian. You actually used an offense inscription to cripple my son's Dantian, destroying his future and his entire life. Before you did this, did you ever think of what consequences it would bring about? Duan Lingtian shrugged. His gaze was calm and a smile was constantly there on the corners of his mouth. He said, as he rotated the spatial ring on his right hand around, Commander Shui, I and your son were complete strangers to each other before today. Why don't you him ask why I crippled his Dantian? Humph. Shui Lu's face sank as he shouted coldly. I don't want to know why you crippled my son's Dantian, and I'm not interested to know, I only know that today, you, Duan Lingtian, will surely die. Are you that certain? The speed at which Duan Lingtian revolved the spatial ring in his hand went faster, and his eyes revealed a trace of disdain. You'll immediately know why I'm so certain. Shui Lu's eyes emitted killing intent as he abruptly took a step forward with an imposing manner that pierced through the sky. Shui Lu. Right at this moment, a figure instantly flashed out of Paladin Academy like a ghost and descended before Duan Lingtian to protect Duan Lingtian and confront Shui Lu. Seeing that Shui Lu desired to make a move against him, Duan Lingtian was already prepared to activate the bone corrosion inscription to annihilate Shui Lu. But the appearance of the figure before him made Duan Lingtian stop the movements of his hand. Vice Dean. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised when he saw the old man, but he still greeted him. Duan Lingtian, you are really good at causing trouble. The gray-clothed old man, or in other words, the Vice Dean of Paladin Academy, Zan Shang, shook his head with a smile. Duan Lingtian extended his hand to rub his nose as he laughed embarrassedly. Zan Shang. Shui Lu's movements stopped and slowed down as well, and his face sank as he looked at Zan Shang. I respect Paladin Academy, and thus didn't forcefully charge in to kill this Duan Lingtian. Now, you still want to stop me outside of Paladin Academy? Zan Shang lightly smiled. Commander Shui, you're being excessive. I would naturally not take notice of matters outside the Paladin Academy. Then why haven't you moved aside? Shui Lu's eyes went cold when he interrupted Zan Shang with a low voice. Right at this moment, a large, luxurious carriage came from afar and attracted the attention of everyone present. Even Shui Lu couldn't help but frown. The carriage directly charged towards the gate, however, it was stopped by the City Guard Army's officers. FK off. The old man that acted as the carriage drive's face sank, then he pushed out his palm and his vast origin energy condensed into a palm print and whistled out before blasting the City Guard Army officer that blocked his path flying. Go. The old man swung the horsewhip in his hand and the three large horses pulled the carriage and directly charged in. Duan Lingtian gazed at the old man with a slightly surprised expression. If he wasn't wrong, this old man was precisely the Duan clan's third elder. To be able to make the Duan clan's third elder drive the carriage, then the person within the carriage would surely have an extremely respected identity. Duan Lingtian was extremely curious. Who could it be? Shui Lu, what dominance you show. An aged voice that contained rage sounded from within the carriage. Subsequently, Duan Chu stood aside and greeted the old man that came out of the carriage. Grand Elder. Duan Lingtian's eyes focused when he saw the old man that came out. He was slightly surprised. The Duan clan's Grand Elder was completely different from the Grand Elders of the Su clan and Shao clan. The Duan clan's Grand Elder Duan Zhen was the previous patriarch of the Duan clan and had an extraordinary status. His status within the Duan clan surpassed that of the patriarch and was similar to the other supreme elders. Shui Lu's face sank when he saw the old man appear, as although he'd heard of Duan Lingtian returning to the clan and acknowledging his ancestors, never had he imagined that this old man would personally come for the sake of Duan Lingtian. Greetings, Senior Duan Zhen. Shui Lu took a deep breath, and he looked at Duan Zhen as he lightly bowed. Shui Lu, you made such a great display just to deal with an 18-year-old youth of our Duan clan. Duan Zhen's calm gaze descended onto Shui Lu. Instantly, Shui Lu felt a wave of pressure, and he took a deep breath as he firmly said, Senior Duan Zhen, Shui Lu came here this time to take revenge for my son. I know this Duan Lingtian is a genius disciple of your Duan clan, but he's crippled the Dantian of my son and destroyed his entire life. I've pledged before my son that as long as I, Shui Lu, have a breath within me, this Duan Lingtian will not live past tomorrow. So, Senior Duan Zhen, once I've taken revenge for my son, then I'll come apologize to you. Shui Lu's tone didn't contain a trace of courtesy. Humph, Shui Yun really has a good son, good. Duan Zhen's eyes focused and a trace of a fierce light flashed within. Then let me see how you make my Duan clan's Duan Lingtian be unable to live past tomorrow with me, Duan Zhen, here. Senior Duan Zhen, I respect you as an elder, but you better not go too far. Shui Lu's face sank and completely turned hostile. Going too far. Ha 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 ha. Duan Zhen started laughing, and within his unrestrained laughter, there seemed to be traces of a terrifying aura mixed within. Duan Lingtian noticed the difference in this aura at the first possible moment, and his eyes focused, as he was shocked inwardly. This Grand Elder is actually in existence at the half-step void stage. Yeah, he is an older generation powerhouse of the Duan clan after all. Half-step void stage. Shui Lu's pupils constricted, and he looked at Duan Zhen with an astonished expression. You're actually a martial artist at the half-step void stage. Humph, I and your father, Shui Yun, are people of the same generation. That old goat has broken through already. Could it be that I would be inferior to him? Duan Zhen couldn't help but sneer when he saw Shui Lu's expression. Meanwhile, the surrounding Paladin Academy students that were spectating all had gazes that shone. Of course, they didn't understand what a half-step void stage martial artist was and only thought that Duan Zhen was a void stage powerhouse. The Duan clan's Grand Elder is actually a void stage powerhouse. As expected of the Duan clan's previous patriarch, his strength is truly shocking. Duan Lingtian will probably be fine today, as a void stage powerhouse had appeared. Although this Shui Lu is the City Guard Army commander, I'm afraid he's probably going to be helpless. Under the sounds of discussion from the crowd of Paladin Academy students, Shui Lu's expression turned more and more unsightly. Never had he expected that the Duan clan would actually send a half-step void stage powerhouse for the sake of Duan Lingtian. With the presence of this half-step void stage powerhouse, not to mention him, even if he were to lead the 1,000 City Guard army behind him, he would still be unable to stop Duan Zhen. And if Duan Zhen wanted to take Duan Lingtian to leave with him, it would be extremely easy. Let's go. Thinking up to this point, Shui Lu chose to retreat for the sake of advancing, and his icy cold gaze that had killing intent hidden within flashed past Duan Lingtian's location. Duan Lingtian's brows knitted, and didn't take Shui Lu's threat to heart. As far as he was concerned, if Shui Lu were to dare come looking for him, it would be outright suicide. However, the appearance of Grand Elder Duan Zhen today did, however, allow him to save a bone corrosion inscription. The City Guard army had arrived in full fury, but now they all retreated, causing some of the people who came to watch the show to be unable to stop themselves from sighing. I originally thought this commander Shui Lu would go all out, but I never expected that he would only start out with a bang but end with a whimper. Yes, it's really not worth talking about, and it's just a waste of my time. It isn't really a waste of time, at least we know the cause and effect of the matter. This Duan Lingtian is really too courageous, actually daring to cripple the only son of Commander Shui Lu. Yeah, this isn't something just anyone would dare do. After the City Guard army retreated, the crowd that came to watch the scene dispersed as well. Thank you, Grand Elder, for coming to my rescue. Duan Lingtian smiled to Duan Zhen. Even though he was still confident in escaping if Duan Zhen hadn't come, since Duan Zhen had arrived, it saved him a bone corrosion inscription, so it was necessary for him to express his gratitude. You really know how to stir up trouble, kid. Duan Zhen shook his head before his gaze descended onto the gray-clothed old man at the side. Zhan Shang, long time no see. It's really been a long time, it's at least been more than 10 years, right? Zhang Shang nodded, and he obviously knew Duan Zhen. I'll be taking my leave first. Duan Zhen nodded to Zhan Shang, before looking at Duan Lingtian. Kid, should I send you home? Grand Elder, it isn't necessary, I'll return home myself. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Duan Zhen nodded and didn't say anything before returning into the carriage and directly leaving. Duan Lingtian, aren't you worried that Shui Lu will turn around and catch you off guard? Zhan Shang looked at Duan Lingtian as he asked with a smile. I hope he does return. Under Zhan Shang's stupefied expression, Duan Lingtian said his farewells to Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan before leaving. Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan heaved a sigh of relief. I never expected the Duan clan's Grand Elder would come personally. Could it be that Duan Lingtian knew of it beforehand? No wonder he was so composed. Xiao Yu's brows lightly moved as he guessed. To think I was still worried about him. Xiao Xuan shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. Meanwhile, the crowd of students at the gate dispersed. Within their hearts, however, shock arose. The Duan clan actually kept Duan Lingtian in such high regard. Even asking a void stage powerhouse to come forward for Duan Lingtian. 197 Chapter 198, 3 Places. After leaving Paladin Academy, Duan Lingtian walked into a remote alley. Without any warning, Duan Lingtian abruptly turned around and looked at the end of the alley, and his gaze focused as he spoke in a calm voice. "Come out." Instantly, two old men slowly walked out, and their faces were filled with shock, as it was difficult for them to imagine how Duan Lingtian was actually capable of noticing their whereabouts. "Sixth Elder, Eighth Elder." Duan Lingtian nodded to the two old men. Their two old men were precisely the Duan clan's sixth elder and eighth elder, and they obviously were sent here by the Duan clan to protect him. "Elders, please return." Duan Lingtian lightly smiled to the two old men before his body moved as if transforming into an agile spirit serpent. He concealed himself by entering the corner of the alley in front of them. The two old men followed up but realized that there was no sign of Duan Lingtian, and they looked for a long while but were unable to locate Duan Lingtian again. For a moment, the shock on their faces grew even greater. This Duan Lingtian is really amazing. Not only was he able to notice us, and he's even capable of easily losing us. Even Duan Rufeng all those years ago was far from being so abnormal. Never mind, since he's able to notice us and lose us, he's naturally capable of noticing and losing another. There is absolutely no meaning in us following him, so let's return. Both the old men glanced at each other and could see the bitter smile on each other's face before shaking their heads and directly leaving. They returned to the Duan clan estate to report to Patriarch Duan Ruhuo. Two gusts of wind sounded as they swept over towards Duan Lingtian, who was on the way home, and they descended beside him. "Young master." They were precisely Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. "Where did you two fellows go off to earlier? Could it be that you were not worried that Shui Lu would have killed me?" Duan Lingtian said angrily. "Young master, we were with the Marquis earlier. We wanted to make a move but were stopped by the Marquis." Zhang Qian had a bitter smile and an innocent expression on his face. "Uncle Ni, even he knows." Duan Lingtian suddenly came to a realization, and a trace of warmth arose within his heart. Looked like even if he didn't have the bone corrosion inscription, or the Vice Dean Zan Shang, or the Duan clan's Grand Elder today, he would have still been fine. Although an afternoon had passed, Duan Lingtian's mood still hadn't been able to fully calm down, and even the two girls at home noticed that Duan Lingtian seemed slightly off. "I'm fine." Duan Lingtian lightly smiled when faced with the concern of the two girls. He returned to his room before lying on his soft bed and gazing at the ceiling. His eyes revealed traces of an awe-inspiring light that flowed within. If I'd crippled Tong Li's cultivation the first time I'd met her, Tang Guo's incident might not have happened. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. In the future, he would never be able to see that female student that idolized him so much ever again. Tang Guo, although she was only a transient guest within his life, but she'd been deeply remembered within his heart now. This entire night, Duan Lingtian thought of many things. In the end, a tremendous change occurred in his mentality. Duan Lingtian's current change in mentality would also lead to the fact that anyone who made an enemy of him in the future would never have a good end. The next day, Duan Lingtian made a trip to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Divine Might Marquis Ni Yuan couldn't help but shake his head with a smile when he saw Duan Lingtian. "What did you come for this time, kid?" Ni Yuan didn't mention anything regarding the matter of the City Guard Army Commander Shui Lu yesterday, or maybe, in his opinion, Shui Lu completely counted for nothing. "Uncle Ni, I come today because I want to ask you for 2 places." Duan Lingtian went straight to the point. "Places?" Ni Yuan was dazed and didn't react for a moment. "Places within the Paladin Academy Star Mastermind Department reinforcements that are departing 20 days from now. I have 2 friends that want to go along with me, and I've already promised them," Duan Lingtian explained. "So it's this. No problem, I'll tell your big brother Ni when he gets home later. I'll ask him to add on 2 more places. What are the names of those 2 people?" Ni Yuan had a casual expression, as this was only a small matter to him. "Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan." Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. "So it's the Xiao clan members. However, this Xiao Xuan seems to be the younger brother of that genius alchemist, Xiao He, right?" As Ni Yuan finished speaking, he glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. Who would have thought that the genius in the martial Dao, Duan Lingtian, whose name was spread and gave rise to much discussion within the Imperial City, was precisely the youth genius alchemist that appeared briefly and once defeated Xiao He within the Alchemist Guild's main guild. Duan Lingtian naturally knew the meaning of what Ni Yuan said, and he lightly smiled. Even if Xiao He were to see me now, he might not even be able to recognize me. Moreover, even if he does recognize me, it still wouldn't affect the relationship between me and Xiao Xuan. This was something that Duan Lingtian was quite confident about, as he could still remember that when he met Xiao Xuan for the first time, when Xiao Xuan spoke, he was filled with admiration towards that genius alchemist that defeated Xiao He, and he bore no resentment. Yes, that disguising method of yours that day was truly unfathomable. Ni Yuan shook his head with a smile as he glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. Sometimes, I really want to break open your head, kid, and see what other secrets are actually hidden within. Ever since this nephew of his appeared, Duan Lingtian had brought him wave after wave of shock. And luckily, his heart was sufficiently strong, otherwise, he really might have a heart attack because of this nephew of his. Duan Lingtian rubbed his nose as he laughed embarrassedly. Right, didn't you say that day that when you've stepped into the origin core stage, you'd be able to refine a grade 8 spirit cleansing pill for your grandpa Ni? Suddenly, Ni Yuan seemed to have thought of something and his eyes shone. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. He was currently only a step away from the 7th level of the core formation stage, let alone the origin core stage. Of course, he understood that this Uncle Ni of his surely thought he'd broken through to the origin core stage like the other people. Thus, he didn't explain and casually found an excuse. Uncle Ni, you at least have to give me some time to let my grade 9 pill fire transform into a grade 8 pine fire, right? Ni Yuan laughed embarrassedly when he heard what Duan Lingtian said, and only now did he recall that even if the cultivation had arrived at the origin core stage, it wasn't so easy to raise the grade of an alchemist. Within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, people with cultivations at the nascent soul stage but were only grade 9 alchemists could be found everywhere. When speaking purely about the alchemist's pill fire, the origin energy within a nascent soul martial artist is sufficient to condense a grade 6 pill fire. However, the advancement of the pill fire is something that depends on the alchemist's natural talent. If someone's natural talent is insufficient, then not to mention the nascent soul stage, even if the person were to break through to the void prying stage, the person would still only be a grade 9 alchemist, or even to the extent of being unable to become a grade 9 alchemist. It's Uncle Ni who's too impatient. Ni Yuan shook his head and smiled before saying, go see your grandfather, he's been frequently talking about you to me during this period of time. Yesterday, when he heard that City Guard Army Commander Shui Lu had brought his soldiers to block you at Paladin Academy's gate, he even started making noise about wanting to kill that Shui Lu. Duan Lingtian was stunned, as he never imagined that the old man's temper was so explosive. However, a trace of warmth still arose within his heart. Grandpa Ni. When Duan Lingtian met the old man, he was just watering the plants in the rear courtyard in an extremely happy manner. When the old man saw Duan Lingtian, his murky eyes shone with a dazzling gleam. Little Tian, you've come. Duan Lingtian supported the old man to sit down before lightly smiling. Grandpa, your body's gotten better lately, right? The old man nodded. The medicinal strength of the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill has already removed the poison from my internal organs, and the remaining poison has been suppressed by the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill within my various parts of my body and within my dantian, so it's not too bad. That's good. Once I've become a grade 8 alchemist, I'll refine a grade 8 spirit cleansing pill for Grandpa Ni to completely remove the remaining poison. Duan Lingtian nodded. This result was within his expectations. I heard you're going to battle with Fen. The old man asked. Duan Lingtian smiled as he said, yes, I want to go experience it. Experiencing it is a good thing, as the battlefield is a place to temper a person. As the old man spoke, his gaze seemed to float as if he'd returned once again to those years in the military life, and there seemed to be an aura of slaughter that arose from his body. This aura of slaughter was extremely terrifying, and even surpassed that of the Divine Might Marquis, Ni Yuan. The following period of time was extremely calm and tranquil. That City Guard Army Commander Shui Lu and that 5th Prince seemed to have completely vanished. Of course, Duan Lingtian wouldn't think they'd show mercy and give up on taking revenge for Shui Lang and Tong Li. And this was probably only the calm before the storm. Paladin Academy, within the Star Mastermind Department Grade 1 classroom. On the podium, Sima Chongfeng slowly said, the Star Mastermind Department's roster for the students who are following the reinforcement army to battle at the northwest border has been released. Teacher Sima, why are you speaking of this? Could it be that someone within our class got a place? Instantly, many students were stunned. Before long, they gazed with tacit understanding at the violet-clothed youth that sat in the distance. It's probably Duan Lingtian. Nonsense, who else could it be besides Duan Lingtian? Some of the students whispered in discussion amongst themselves. In next to no time, all the other students besides Duan Lingtian looked at Sima Chongfeng, as they waited for him to announce the roster, especially Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan. They gazed fixedly at Sima Chongfeng, as even though Duan Lingtian said there would be no problem, they were still slightly perturbed. Duan Lingtian. Sima Chongfeng announced the first name. Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan. Sima Chongfeng continued. Actually, when he received the roster, even he was slightly surprised. Duan Lingtian was recommended by him, and thus it was extremely normal for Duan Lingtian to be within the roster, but the other two people weren't recommended by him. When Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan heard what Sima Chongfeng said, their gazes brightened, and they looked at each other. They could both see the excitement within each other's eyes. Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan got places as well. Instantly, the remaining students all glanced at Sima Chongfeng, and hoped that Sima Chongfeng would call out their names. But unfortunately, what Sima Chongfeng said next completely dispelled their thoughts. You three prepare properly and gather at the Academy's martial arts practice ground half a month from now for departure. 198 Chapter 199, The Death of Su Nan. Finally unable to hold back any longer. At dusk, Duan Lingtian had just walked out from Paladin Academy when he directly walked into a remote alley. The corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's figure jerked before his entire body flew out, and instantly, his body vanished at the corner of the other end of the alley. After Duan Lingtian left, a figure that was like a ghost followed after. Before long, two more figures appeared, and these two figures were precisely Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, and their expressions couldn't help but go grim. However, no matter how they searched, they were unable to find Duan Lingtian's tracks again. Why did the young master avoid us as well? Zhao Gang was slightly worried. Maybe the young master noticed that that person's strength wasn't simple and chose to avoid us because of this. Based on the speed that person revealed earlier, he's at least in existence at the 8th or 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Zhang Qian had a serious expression. We can't do anything now, and can only return and wait for news from the young master. Zhao Gang deeply agreed because if Duan Lingtian wanted to conceal himself, it was completely impossible for them to find Duan Lingtian. At the same time, outside a nearby empty courtyard house, a violet figure stopped its movement. The surroundings were completely devoid of any human inhabitation, and it belonged to a remote area within the inner city. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a terrifying gust of strong wind swept over, and an aged figure appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. This was an old man with a pair of eyes that flickered with a cold light as he stared at Duan Lingtian as if he wanted to tear Duan Lingtian into pieces. Duan Lingtian frowned, as he originally thought that it was that city guard army commander Shui Lu or someone the fifth prince had sent, but now it would seem it wasn't so. If he was only carrying out orders, then he shouldn't be looking at him so hatefully. Duan Lingtian could clearly feel that the hatred the old man felt towards him was a hatred that had reached the depths of his bone. Who are you? Duan Lingtian looked at the old man as he asked in a low voice. Who am I? The old man couldn't help but sneer when he heard what Duan Lingtian said. Duan Lingtian, looks like you've offended too many people, and so you're utterly unaware of who's come to seek revenge from you. However, I really never imagined that the Duan clan's half-step void stage powerhouse would personally attend to the matter for your sake and help you ward off that city guard army commander Shui Lu. However, you're going to die here today. As the old man finished speaking, his eyes revealed an insane killing intent. At the same time, the origin energy on the old man's body flashed erratically, as 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Duan Lingtian's heart jerked, as although the old man wasn't a half-step void stage powerhouse, a 9th level nascent soul martial artist was more than enough to be shocking. This old man was absolutely the strongest person he'd seen below the half-step void stage. You're the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan. An existence at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage and hated him to the bones. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian had guessed the identity of the old man. However, didn't the Duan clan help him deal with the problem with the Su clan? He was confident that Patriarch Duan Ruhuo wouldn't lie to him. Looked like this Su Nan was likely acting on his own, or else he wouldn't personally attend to the matter. You're really intelligent, actually being able to guess who I am. Su Nan's eyes revealed a vicious gleam, and his voice was bone-piercingly cold. Duan Lingtian, Only Tong is left in my family, but you've destroyed his life, destroyed his hopes, and have destroyed my hopes for him." As he finished speaking, Su Nan was slightly demented. "Humph." Duan Lingtian's eyes went cold as he mocked, "Su Nan, why don't you think about this? If he didn't provoke me and even threaten to cripple my cultivation, why else would I give him a dose of his own medicine? As far as I'm concerned, everything that happened was nobody's fault but his own. If you want to blame someone, then blame yourself for not properly teaching him how he should conduct himself. Arrogant and conceited, and treating others with contempt, even if I hadn't crippled him, the day would come where he'd be killed at the hands of another." Duan Lingtian's words exposed the truth with every sentence. Su Nan's expression became more and more unsightly, and the killing intent within his eyes became difficult to restrain. "It makes no difference no matter what you say. Today, you will certainly die. That would depend on if you have the capability." Duan Lingtian sneered as he revolved the spatial ring on his hand, and his icy cold gaze descended onto Su Nan's body. As long as it wasn't an existence at the half-step void stage, he was not afraid. "You're faced with imminent death and you can still smile. After I kill you, I'll chop off your head and take it back to the Su clan for that grandson of mine to enjoy the sight of it." As Su Nan finished speaking, his body trembled before moving out. Above him, 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out in tow. Sand and dust rushed up into the sky everywhere Su Nan passed, and his entire body pulled out a string of astonishing afterimages as he approached Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye. What speed! At the instant that Su Nan's figure moved, Duan Lingtian's legs that had origin energy accumulated within since long ago trembled abruptly, then he flashed to the side. At the moment that Su Nan reacted and intended to pounce at him, he activated the inscription on his spatial ring. Bone corrosion inscription. A wisp of a gray light flew out from the spatial ring and locked onto Su Nan. The speed of it was even faster than Su Nan's current speed. At the instant that Su Nan pounced towards Duan Lingtian, he noticed this wisp of gray light flashing towards him, and his heart immediately started trembling. He could clearly perceive that this was an extremely terrifying inscription. And it brought extreme pressure to him. A panic thought had only just arose within his mind when the wisp of gray light smashed onto his body. Instantly, Su Nan only felt a wave of extreme pain from every bone within his body, causing him to be unable to keep from yelling out a sad and shrill cry with a nearly hoarse voice. At the moment before his consciousness faded, he only felt his body collapsing with a loud crash. As he gazed upon the disgusting corpse before his eyes, even Duan Lingtian, who wasn't looking at it for the first time, still felt a wave of disgust. Kai! Duan Lingtian lit ablaze a wisp of pill fire and burned Su Nan's corpse before taking away Su Nan's spatial ring. The Su clan's Grand Elder will have to be changed from today onwards. Duan Lingtian's cold and indifferent gaze swept past that residue that transformed into ashes in the blink of an eye, before turning and leaving. On the way, Duan Lingtian established ownership over Su Nan's spatial ring. Not bad, although it's far from being comparable to the wealth Duan Rulei left me, this wealth can be considered to be a hugely profitable business deal. Duan Lingtian glanced at the spatial ring and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. There was around 30 million silver within. Combined with the other few batches of wealth that he obtained, and including the wealth from Duan Rulei, Duan Lingtian had nearly 300 million in silver on hand already. The currency that circulated within the Crimson Sky Kingdom was the centralized currency that circulated within the Darken Dynasty. As long as the Darken Dynasty was still standing, this silver wouldn't lose its value, and it could be exchanged into gold, silver, property, or other items of equal value. The Crimson Sky Kingdom was only a vassal state of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, whereas the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was only one of the 100+ imperial kingdoms under the rule of the Darken Dynasty. I'm not lacking money in the short term, however, it's always the more the merrier when it comes to money. In the future, as my cultivation advances, the grade of the medicinal pills and spirit weapons I'll need to refine will increase, and the required materials will be more and more valuable. As for inscriptions, that's something that totally burns through money, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. He wished for nothing more than for more people like Su Nan to pounce at home and gift money to him. When he was near his own house, Duan Lingtian noticed Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang standing before his house's gate and looking forward with eager anticipation. They were obviously waiting for him. Young master. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang moved over to greet him when they noticed Duan Lingtian had returned. Have you two been slacking off lately? I actually shook you two off again. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he pretended to be serious. Young master, how could we dare slack off? However, your counter-tracking technique is something we're too inferior to compare to currently, and it's difficult for us to distinguish true or false. Zhang Qian had a helpless and bitter smile on his face. Although Zhao Gang didn't say anything, he still nodded in all seriousness. Alright, stop flattering me. Let's go home. Duan Lingtian took the lead as he headed back to his courtyard house. Young master, what happened to the person that chased you? Zhang Qian asked curiously. Even you two were thrown off by me, could it be that I couldn't even throw him off? Duan Lingtian glanced at Zhang Qian in contempt but didn't explain the truth of the matter, as Su Nan was the Su clan's grand elder after all. If it wasn't necessary, he didn't want to create unnecessary problems. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang came to a sudden understanding. Duan Lingtian would be leaving in another half-month, and during this period of time, besides cultivating and inscribing bone corrosion inscriptions, Duan Lingtian tried his best to make time to accompany the two little girls at home. The passage of time always flowed swiftly. In the blink of an eye, the day the reinforcement troops would go out to battle approached. Within this past half a month, Duan Lingtian inscribed bone corrosion inscriptions on the extra pile of spatial rings. At the same time, he asked Shang Quan to gather large quantities of the bone corrosion inscriptions materials and pile them up within his spatial ring in the event of an unexpected need. Besides making adequate preparations of these things, his cultivation smoothly broke through to the 7th level of the core formation stage 10 days ago, and he'd consumed a dragon blood pill to complete the tempering of his fleshly body for the 7th level of the core formation stage. And his entire strength gained an additional strength of 3 ancient mammoths because of this. Even without the use of a spirit weapon, by exploding forth with his entire strength, the current Duan Lingtian was capable of drawing upon the energy of heaven and earth to develop 19 ancient mammoth silhouettes. And he was only lacking the strength of 1 ancient mammoth from having a strength comparable to the first level of the origin core stage. The day after tomorrow is the day the reinforcements go out to battle. Deep into the night, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on his bed. He closed his eyes and cultivated for a while before preparing to sleep. Right at this moment, the sound of his door being knocked resounded. K'er. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force perceived who was outside his door at the first moment. Only when he opened the door did he notice that K'er was standing outside his door with her nightgown on. Duan Lingtian smiled as he asked, K'er, it's so late. Why haven't you slept yet? Young master, you're going to the battlefield day after tomorrow, I want to lie with you. K'er said, in a light voice, and her delicate body lightly trembled as her cheeks blushed. Duan Lingtian gulped down a mouthful of saliva, as the charming and bashful K'er was no different than a celestial maiden that had fallen into the mortal realm in his eyes. In the end, Duan Lingtian's lower regions went hot and he couldn't endure it any longer. He picked K'er up into his embrace and threw her on his bed. After kicking his door shut, Duan Lingtian seemed like a starved wolf as he pounced on K'er. A dazzling red rose slowly bloomed atop the bed sheets, seeming amorous and beautiful. 199 Chapter 200, Ji Yuzan. At noon the next day. Paladin Academy's cafeteria, Tianhu. Duan Lingtian glanced at Tianhu before looking at Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan, who were beside him. You two tell him. What are you all being so mysterious about? Tianhu had a stupefied expression, and he glanced at Duan Lingtian before looking at Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan. Let me do it. Xiao Xuan looked Tianhu as he lightly smiled. Tianhu, from tomorrow onwards, you'll probably have to eat alone in the cafeteria. What do you mean? Tianhu frowned. Why are you three acting so mysterious today? Could it be that you're all planning to ask for leave and go on a journey? Xiao Xuan shook his head. It can be considered a journey, but it isn't asking for leave. We will be joining the reinforcements to head to the northwest border tomorrow and become members of the reinforcements troops to head to the northwest border's battlefield. Tianhu was struck dumb, and he extended his hand to touch Xiao Xuan's forehead. Xiao Xuan, you don't have a fever, so why are you raving wildly? Tianhu naturally didn't believe what Xiao Xuan said, as amongst the Paladin Academy students, the minimum requirement to enter the battlefield even within the Star General Department would be Grade 2 students, whereas for the Star Mastermind Department, the requirements were much harsher, and generally only a few Grade 5 or Grade 6 students were able to participate. Seeing that Tianhu still didn't believe them, Xiao Yu spoke out as well. Tianhu, Xiao Xuan isn't talking nonsense, we're really leaving tomorrow. Tianhu was still partially skeptical when he heard what Xiao Yu said, then he looked at Duan Lingtian in an attempt to seek the final confirmation. Duan Lingtian nodded. FK. Tianhu glared. How did you all get spots? You guys aren't good brothers, sneaking off by yourselves and leaving me all alone. Xiao Shuan patted Tianhu's shoulders as he said, with a smile, Tianhu, didn't you once say it yourself? As a Star General Department student, you'll have an opportunity to enter the battlefield sooner or later. As for us, we'll probably only have this one chance. Tianhu's face instantly fell when he heard what Xiao Shuan said, and his face was filled with helplessness and a bitter laugh. In the afternoon, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged in cultivation atop a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds. At an unknown time, a wave of clamor echoed into his ears. Duan Lingtian. A sweet-sounding voice entered into Duan Lingtian's ears and gave him the feeling that they'd met before. Duan Lingtian returned to his senses before looking off into the distance, and only then did he notice a beautiful figure that seemed like a celestial maiden standing there. The woman had a drop-dead gorgeous appearance. Princess Bai Yao. Duan Lingtian was stunned, as he'd never imagined that Princess Bai Yao would appear here. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian noticed that the entire group of Star Mastermind Department students including Xiao Yu and Xiao Shuan were all looking at where Duan Lingtian currently was, and most of them had faces filled with jealousy and envy. Moreover, Xiao Yu and Xiao Shuan had dubious expressions. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly as he directly jumped off the large tree. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that Princess Bai Yao seemed to say something to the old woman behind her, then the old woman nodded and Princess Bai Yao walked over alone towards him. Princess. Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile to Princess Bai Yao. This could be considered a greeting to her. Princess Bai Yao's beautiful face blushed and had a delicate and attractive appearance. Duan Lingtian, I heard that you're leaving the Imperial City with the reinforcement troops tomorrow and heading to the northwest border. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Princess, why are you at Paladin Academy? Princess Bai Yao lightly smiled. I came to look for my seventh brother, then I thought of coming to see you on the way. As she finished speaking, Princess Bai Yao's face was even redder. Seventh brother. Duan Lingtian was surprised. The seventh prince is at the Paladin Academy as well. It's really a rare occasion that Princess still remembers me, and it's truly an overwhelming favor. Duan Lingtian's brows slightly knitted and he lightly smiled. Princess Bai Yao shook her head and said, Duan Lingtian, there's only me and you here, so you don't have to be so restrained. Yes. Although Duan Lingtian replied to her, there was still no change in him, causing Princess Bai Yao to gradually become slightly helpless as she glanced at Duan Lingtian with a hidden bitterness. After chatting for a while more, only then did Princess Bai Yao leave. Duan Lingtian, you're really something, the princess actually personally came to look for you. Xiao Shuan walked over with a face full of jealousy and envy. She really deserves to be the #1 beauty within the Imperial City, and she has a well-deserved reputation. Xiao Yu couldn't help but sigh as well, and he glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian at the same time. This fellow, why does he incur so much fondness of beauties? First it was Li Fei, then it was his sister, and now Princess Bai Yao arrived. The three women were undoubtedly beauties with drop-dead gorgeous appearance, but they had all lost their hearts to Duan Lingtian. I hope that with the passage of time, Lan can forget him. Xiao Yu sighed in his heart, as although he didn't mind Duan Lingtian being his brother-in-law, whenever he thought about how Duan Lingtian already had women by his side, he wasn't willing to allow his sister to jump into the flames and share a husband with other women. Meanwhile, the surroundings burst into an uproar. Did you see that? Even Princess Bai Yao came to look for Duan Lingtian. Yeah, I never imagined that Duan Lingtian's charm was so huge. In terms of age, Duan Lingtian is similar to Princess Bai Yao, and they seem like a perfect match. They're far more than a perfect match, they are virtually a match made in heaven. The Imperial City's #1 beauty, and the Crimson Sky Kingdom's #1 genius in the younger generation, tisk tisk, could it be that the heavens destined them to have a fate of marriage? Similar discussions spread out from the side of the martial arts practice grounds to the entire martial arts practice grounds. Moreover, the news strayed from the truth the further it spread. Some people even said that His Majesty the Emperor intended to bestow marriage upon Duan Lingtian and Princess Bai Yao. At another side of the martial arts practice grounds, a few 25-year-old higher-grade students were encircled around a handsome and extraordinary blue-clothed young man that had a graceful bearing. They were listening to him recount something. A strong confidence was emitted from between the brows of the blue-clothed young man, and there was a resplendent and bright smile on his face as he gave a lively description. The surrounding students' gazes revealed a trace of respect when they gazed at him. Brother Ji Yuzan. Suddenly, an anxious voice sounded and interrupted the blue-clothed young man. What are you so agitated about? The blue-clothed young man frowned as he looked at the young man that ran to stand before him and was slightly displeased. Brother Ji Yuzan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. However, this matter is related to Princess Bai Yao. The young man that arrived in haste hadn't even finished speaking when he was interrupted by the blue-clothed youth. What did you say? Bai Yao's come. The blue-clothed youth's eyes revealed a trace of fanaticism, and his tone became hurried as well. The disposition with graceful bearing earlier was instantly shattered by himself. Yes, she seemed to have come to look for the seventh prince. The young man hurriedly nodded. Is she still at the seventh prince's place? The blue-clothed young man pressed on and seemed that he planned to directly charge over to meet Princess Bai Yao. No, Princess Bai Yao has already left. The young man shook his head. Then what are you so agitated about? The blue-clothed young man frowned, and his eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. Brother Ji Yuzan, besides seeing the seventh prince, Princess Bai Yao saw another person. The young man carefully glanced at the blue-clothed young man as he spoke slightly hesitantly. The blue-clothed youth seemed like an explosive that had been lit when he heard what the young man said, and his face went grim. Who else did Bai Yao see? Duan Lingtian, the young man directly said. Duan Lingtian. The blue-clothed youth frowned and was slightly depressed. How could Bai Yao know that grade 1 student? That person seems to have only arrived at the Imperial City a few months ago, right? Right at this moment. You didn't see it earlier. Not only did Princess Bai Yao take the initiative to go see Duan Lingtian, she even asked the old woman at her side to stay on the spot while she went to talk intimately with Duan Lingtian by herself. It can't be. Could it be there's something between them? I don't know either. However, she chatted quite happily with Duan Lingtian. Moreover, when Princess Bai Yao left, I saw that her face was rosy red from blushing. Looks like Princess Bai Yao has feelings for Duan Lingtian. The voice of two students that walked shoulder to shoulder as they passed by entered the blue-clothed young man's ears and caused his face to sink. The blue-clothed young man's frosty gaze looked towards the two students that passed by as he coldly shouted, "If you two dare speak nonsense anymore, I'll cripple your tongues." The two students' faces went grim. They were about to retort, but when they caught sight of the blue-clothed young man, they were like mice that had seen a cat, and they fled in panic. Brother Ji Yuzan, what's wrong? Didn't you say that Lord Shang and His Majesty had privately come to an agreement and that in more years, he would bestow a marriage and betroth Princess Bai Yao to you? One of the people at the side had a bewildered expression. Humph. Ji Yuzan's face sank, and a thread of cold light flashed within his eyes. Duan Lingtian. The other people realized Ji Yuzan's fury and shut their mouths. However, they quickly noticed that every part of the martial arts practice grounds was currently spreading the rumors regarding the dubious relationship between Duan Lingtian and Princess Bai Yao. Atop the large tree at a side of the martial arts practice grounds, Duan Lingtian yawned and looked at the sky's color. It was currently sunset, the time to leave the academy. Xiao Yu, Xiao Xuan. Duan Lingtian greeted Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan before walking towards the outside of Paladin Academy with them. We're leaving tomorrow. Are you two ready? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. Actually, there's nothing to get ready, just some changes of clothes. Xiao Xuan shook his head with a smile. When he thought of how he would be following the reinforcement troops to depart tomorrow and head towards the northwest borders battlefield, he couldn't help but get slightly excited within his heart. Xiao Yu evidently was almost the same. Just when the gate was right before their eyes. Duan Lingtian. Right at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice sounded from behind Duan Lingtian's group of three. Duan Lingtian's group of three stopped their footsteps before turning around. Duan Lingtian looked off into the distance. There was currently a blue-clothed youth with a handsome appearance and a graceful bearing coming towards them, and he was bringing along a few young men. Ji Yuzan. Xiao Xuan frowned when he saw the blue-clothed young man. Xiao Xuan, you know him? Xiao Yu noticed the hostile expression that was revealed between the brows of the blue-clothed young man, and this hostility was precisely directed towards Duan Lingtian. This Ji Yuzan is the only son of Prime Minister Ji Yu, and he is a grade 6 student within the Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department. His cultivation is at the third level of the origin core stage. Most importantly, he's inherited the wisdom of Prime Minister Ji Yu and has his own understanding on the Tao of the mastermind, with a bearing that showed he had a great chance of developing his own school of thought. Xiao Xuan slowly said. Prime Minister Ji Yu. Xiao Yu was slightly surprised. That figure that's equally famous to the Divine Might Marquis, Grand General Ni Yuan.